Or rather not.
Welcome back, everybody, to this week's version of the Chief Seek Critics podcast. I'm one of your hosts, a geeky writer.
I'm Crimson Maroon.
I'm a character called Sinister Boy.
And I'm Sprinks. And we have TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, LetterBox, Facebook, Louise, YouTube and Rumble
Everywhere.
for visual side of things. We got like a bunch of, socials you can go find us at. All at Cheap Seat Critics, except the Twitter. The Twitter is the CRITIX. Thank you for those of you who have stuck around so far that you literally said it along with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get at those ats.
I think that was it.
Well, all right, I wasn't sure. uh, well, yeah. So this week, I picked a horror-ish kind of film for all of us to watch.
You did.
It's a film on my radar. It's been on my radar for a while. I've been told I should watch it a few times, so I finally got around to doing that by picking it for the podcast. But I'll let's do our histories for this movie called Dog Soldiers, and then we shall continue on. So, Sprinks, why don't you start?
Okay. I knew nothing of this film. I have never heard of it. I have never seen a trailer. The only thing I have a connection as a hint of what this film was there was an episode of Love, Death, Robots titled Dog Soldiers that I have seen. So that was the only connection I made to this. And they kind of
Alright.
line up.
Fair enough. Crimson.
Yeah, I had never heard of this until it was pitched for this season. So clearly, I had not seen it before this season. I've watched it once. I believe I've seen the episode of the robots that Sprinks was referencing. So I don't know if it's a reference, but it's quite similar in a certain manner. That would be it.
And Sinister.
I know probably nobody's going to be part of this, but I have heard of this movie before. Like years ago, years ago I heard of it through something that I still watch now. But there's a great kind of YouTube videos done by this record shop in LA called Amoeba Records, and they have people come in and like show off what they bought or whatever. And it's usually celebrities, music people, but sometimes comedians and stuff. And I think it was Kumail Nanjiani and his, I don't know if they were married at the time or if they aren't married, but his wife, and they were promoting the Big Sick movie, and he got a bunch of DVDs, she got a bunch of CDs, and one of the DVDs was Dog Soldiers, and they showed a couple little snippets from it, and I was like, that looks awesome. I should check that out at some point. And then I just kind of forgot about it until writer picked it. So I've seen, I think somewhat I saw the probably like the last scene and the first scene of the movie basically in the little clips that they showed for like what it was about. So that was all I've seen until I
Yeah.
watched the movie.
Fair enough. My history is pretty short. I heard about this indirectly because I heard of the director through another podcast that I watch, and I ended up just going and checking out their stuff, and I thought this looked like it would be kind of interesting and fun, and it was on my back burner for about a year, and since I hadn't gotten around to watch it, I thought I'd pick it for the podcast to see what you guys thought of it, because as soon as I read the premise, I'm like, well, I think Sinister would enjoy this. I don't know about the others, and I'd be interested to see where it goes. That's pretty much why I picked it for the podcast. But yeah, I have seen nothing other than images for this when I was researching it, researching the director. But yeah, this was my first time for the podcast, obviously. Um, and with that, I'll go into some facts for all of us. If you don't mind, I'll get the fun basic ones out of the way. This movie had a budget of 2.3 million, which is like a penny compared to what they spend on most movies these days.
Yeah,
Um,
especially with the practical effects and explosions and stuff. Interesting.
yeah, I think they used their budget, I think, fairly well for this. just because they went on they clearly used their budget to go film on location, and then just kept it very, very bare bones. So I agree. I think it was pretty effectively used.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is 2000. This came out 2002. It was directed by Neil Marshall. It was primarily filmed in Scotland and Luxembourg. It was originally supposed to be filmed in. Oh God, I already forgot. um,
That's in like
My
the
favorite place.
um yeah, I literally just skim. I only look up Wikipedia when like a movie's we're discussing because if I'm not hosting.
yeah,
Yeah, I saw it. I was like, oh, that's kind of sounded cool, but then I
Isle of
forgot.
Man. It
Oh,
was supposed to be filmed in
Isle of
Isle of
Man. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
Man. Yeah. And the reason they didn't do that is just because of tax and budgetary reasons. Because obviously they had a very thin budget to play with.
Classic reasons for changing creativity, taxes.
Yeah, pretty much. Um, it won an award for at Brussels International Film Festival for fantasy films, and it took 6 years to refine and rewrite the script.
6 years. Yikes.
Yeah,
National
uh,
treasure numbers right there.
yeah. I mean, to be fair, despite the budget, I think the script is still fairly strong, which kind of starts lensing into my opinion of the film here. So, um, uh, our structure today, assuming no one else any has facts for this really obscure movie.
Well, actually, funny enough, I have a little one.
Oh, I'm happy I asked, Springs.
Yeah. So, first one I have kind of knowing watching this film. There's only two actors I recognized. One was I should have written down the names. Jim James Cunningham, the guy who
Jim
plays
James.
Ryan. I recognize him from Game of Thrones. He's Sir Davos, and he's also recently in the Dracula movie that just came out, The Last Voyage of the Demeter.
Oh yeah, The Last Voyage of the Demeter.
Demeter, thank you. And then the other one I recognized was Sean Pertwee, who plays Sergeant Wells. He is Alfred Pennyworth in the Gotham TV show, and
Oh, you're right.
his father John Pertwee, was the third Doctor in Doctor Who.
I completely I to be fair, I didn't finish Gotham, but you're right. I knew I recognized him from somewhere.
If we're going with recognizing people, I recognized him as Alfred. Ryan, writer, you and I would also recognize him from Doctor Who. He
Yes,
was in
we
one episode
do.
of Doctor Who. And uh, who's the other one I recognized? The main Scooter, not Scooter.
Cooper?
Uh,
Cooper?
Cooper. Oh, I keep thinking of Scooter. Cooper. Everyone should know who that guy is.
Yeah,
Poseidon. Percy Jackson.
Percy Jackson. Lightning Thief.
Oh, yeah, space
Yeah,
in
no
my
wonder I
mind.
forgot. I tried to
Uh,
forget that film. So
they should they should probably also recognize him from Train Spotting. I don't know if anybody's seen that movie.
Nope,
Nope.
not yet. Anyway,
yeah, I heard I
Made
was
me surprised.
it's definitely the accent, but I thought that Cooper was Christopher Eccleston for a bit. Obviously, looks nothing like
Yeah,
him, but
no, yeah, yeah, it's the
their
accent.
accent, and they speak exactly the same.
Yeah.
It took a couple minutes for me to kind of to displace those two actors apart from each other to or distinguish them.
He's also in Flashpoint Paradox.
Cooper,
Yeah,
the
he's
animated movie.
yeah, the animated movie. He's
Okay,
Thomas Wayne.
oh,
interesting. Okay.
Hmm.
anyway,
I think
other
that's
things I
all.
had was when I was doing like looking for imagery for this. I saw some posters used, and I decided to write down some of the quotes said by critics that were on the posters because two of them stood out to me. And then I guess just the tagline of the film was six men, full moon, no chance, which I think is nice and short. But one of them read Jaws, Aliens, and Predator with a werewolf twist. That one's from The Face.
All right.
And the second one was the most explosive and purely enjoyable horror debut since The Evil Dead by Total Film.
This. I think this is his first outing, so I guess it would be a debut.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty good. No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not gonna bash it. It's pretty good. I'm not gonna. It's a good first film.
It's good
I
compared
can't
to your
deny that.
baby, though. I get it.
Yeah, well, yeah. Like I said, I'm way too biased on that, so I cannot do not take any of my words. That's I'm heavily biased on that point.
For Evil Dead.
Yeah, for
For
Evil
Evil. No, for this movie, I like this way better than Evil Dead.
Well,
Obviously,
I'm just putting it out there in case
no,
people don't know about your history of Evil Dead.
yeah. Watch
Uh,
that video; it's pretty good.
There's our plug. All right. Well, with that, I guess we could dive into the film. I am doing. We're gonna do just popcorn structure for this one. So any part of the movie you can jump to, and any part of the movie you can comment on, and I guess we'll go until we are out of points or we get really bored.
Which will happen
First.
first?
Which will happen first? Sinister, why don't you start us off?
All right. Well, unfortunately, I'm too linear, so I'm gonna start kind of from the beginning, just to because I it also has a point.
We all take our notes
Yeah,
linearly, so I'm not
yeah.
surprised.
Uh, there's I think we can have a little bit of a discussion on it. I really love the kind of like the quote unquote monster introduction scene at the very beginning in the tent. I think it's was just casually talking with Sprinks about it, and I said, "Oh yeah, I think that's like my favorite. I think that's the best scene in the whole movie." And he disagreed with me, and I'm curious. I'm curious if anybody else is feeling a similar way, or if I am on the minority on this.
I'll answer. I don't think it's I don't think it's my favorite scene of the film. I do, however, recognize the script is extremely efficient in that scene. I actually really liked the writing of that scene. It gives you everything you need to know about the characters in just a few minutes before tragedy strikes. So you understand who they are, why they're there, what's brought them out there, how much they love each other, and then they die, which is I think
And they
was
die.
and then they die, which I think was actually very I that was part of the script that I definitely felt was part of why it took 6 years to be refined. Because there's a few moments where I can feel that time come through this onto the screen.
Mm.
Because it's a very very good hook. So while I wouldn't pick it as my favorite, and I don't think it's necessarily the best, I do think it does a lot in terms of opening this film.
I will echo what Ryder said. I don't think it's the best. It's not my favorite. It's good. I really do like the zipper part, though. Uh, that really stood out. Liked it. Uh, but no, I have a different scene that would be my favorite.
I think I know what it is, but I'm not going to
Okay.
say it. You can say it. Because if I'm
You want to
wrong,
get
I don't
your
want to look like a fool.
do you want to get your piece in here, Springs?
Yeah, and to use my own words of what Sinister said, yeah, I still hold that this isn't my favorite scene in the film. I do like that it's very quick to introduce that something's around of the werewolf, of like its presence, and it's not later in the film of an introduction kind of thing. Even though it's not shown, it's still present at the first scene of the film. So I like that part of it. What I don't like that really stood out to me is the grabbing of the lady in the tent before she kind of gets killed and then dragged out the rest, and just how it's a technique used with filming that the camera goes like real quick and quick cuts to show like action and tense moments. But this, like, imagining just what the scene looked like, it was a lady probably lifted up partially out of the tent, trying. She's not like flaying around or screaming, and a guy just kind of like tugging on her. And to me, just visualizing that as the cameraman is like falling over on himself to get the shots he wants just sound ridiculous in my head.
Mm, interesting. My problem with it was her lack of reaction to it, not really the camera work, because the camera work throughout is on par with itself. I don't think that scene stood out as being worse with the camera than any other particular scene. Because there's a lot of not shoddy camera work, but it's definitely not smooth camera work. And watching it, I was in trouble deciding whether this was bad or just what they wanted out of it, being the camera, anyways, because they stick to it very consistently. I think.
I don't. There's only. I mean, for me, the camera work I think is pretty good throughout, but and I don't think I had a problem in the same way that I think you had a problem with it. There's only like I think two scenes that I can kind of think of that I were like I didn't I thought the camera work was very shoddy. I think most of my problems with the technical aspects of the movie are the quick cuts and you know I guess blanket over like the whole uh, editing in general is a little bit heavy-handed to me. I know like the purpose of it, and we've seen like it work well in other things. I just think in this one, it's just kind of it's like it's too much. That's most of my technical problems with the movie, but I think the camera work is for a first outing and for a low budget, it's pretty good.
I'm
Something I think
thinking.
that.
Sorry,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead, Crimson.
Okay.
Okay, both of you go at the
Something
same
that
time.
I think is hard to achieve well in terms of cinematography is when you're doing a lot of cuts and doing shaky cam at the same time,
Yeah,
because it can get really ugly to watch or disorienting, and that is something I don't think they particularly did well in this. 'Cause they were doing a lot of cuts during the actions and quite shaky cam.
I think, yeah. I'm trying to think because we can talk about it since this is popcorn. I'm actually going to jump to one of my another scene where I actually think it was for me it was the hardest camera work to watch, and I think that's when they're running
I think I
in the
know
woods
exactly what you're gonna say.
After Sarge got
Yeah,
injured and they're running in the woods away from the
mm,
werewolf, and before they get picked up by the car. That whole sequence before they reach the road, I think that was the hardest. That was the roughest camera work sequence for me. Like that's kind of where like okay, this
actually,
is kind of hard to watch, and I definitely feel like that. Yeah, it's definitely an aspect of the low budget, the low first outing. There's a lot that goes into it, but I think that for me was probably the worst aspect of camera work.
I actually I surprisingly I think I mean that I have to probably recheck that on that because I only watched this kind of once all the way through. Um, but my least favorite camera work in this is probably from a few minutes before that, right after they kind of find the special forces, set up and everything. There's like I think there's two. There might just be one. I mean, I'm not certain, but there's like at least one time where they do like a 360 camera turnaround and you can't see anything. Like nothing, like everything is a blur because nothing gets like focused on. And it just I was like, okay, I don't. This is not a. This is a terrible shot. I don't know why they put this in. It would have been way better if they just did like a quick, zoom and cut or whatever, and had it be done. This three, do like a whole 180 or 180-degree turn around or whatever.
Sinister, I know exactly what shot you're talking about,
Yeah, I know it
and
was.
I'm
Yeah,
I'm against you on that. I think that was an awesome shot.
no, it was not. I don't.
Yeah,
I
the long
wholeheartedly
way
disagree.
around pan from the
Mm-mm.
death to establish the whole destruction of the camp to go back to the team. I thought
It.
that was awesome.
I mean, listen in practice it is a good idea. I like the idea.
But if the
It's
quality of the
way too.
film wasn't so
Yeah,
low, it was-
yeah, I mean it's a that's my problem with it. I'm like you can like you can have a solid, I'm not saying this movie doesn't have a solid script. It's a solid script. It has a decent to excellent casting, of like people and actors, doing their stuff and everything. And it is using, this low budgetness very, very well for the most part. But they do at times kind of overexert beyond their means. And when you do that, even if it like a really good like that is a really good idea, and I like it in concept. But if your camera equipment can't feasibly capture it or do it, so that it comes across, I don't you shouldn't. I don't think you should. It's a because it just looks kind of cheesy or it looks kind of bad. Even if I'm like, yeah, that's a great idea, and it is a good idea for a shot. It's like okay, but if you can't get it, I don't think you should. Or you should,
Uh,
or you should try it, and then if it doesn't work, and then just cut it out of the movie and do something else.
yeah, I guess my follow-up question to you, Sinister, would be:
Mm.
is it just because the visual itself is too grainy when it's transitioning around like that?
Yeah, like nothing really. Yeah, my problem with it is like nothing sticks out. Nothing like it just looks like a big, sea of blur. It doesn't. You don't stay on anything long enough for it to. Which I mean, if you have a nice enough camera or whatever, and especially nowadays, there's lots of nice cameras you can do it with. But like, you kind of you have to get the speed right because if you do it too fast, you get what kind of is in this movie where it's just everything just looks like okay, I can see it's a mess, but I don't know what any of it is, so it doesn't really resonate with me that it's important or these guys are really well equipped and they got
Is that a
ambushed and
gun, a radio, an arm? I can't tell what that is on the ground.
yeah, exactly. So I'm like it. Like I said, great idea and concept, but when you see it on the screen and everything and nothing really sticks out, it doesn't have the same impact anymore. It doesn't like I don't feel like, "Oh, these guys were really, really well equipped," because I don't know what equipment they have because I can't tell what any the difference between a stump and a radio in this shot.
Sinister,
Mhm.
would the shot have been better for you if it was panned at a slower speed?
I mean, yeah, probably. I mean, sure. I think they didn't have, the speed right or they didn't have the aperture quite right or something, when they did it and it was probably and listen, I'm not saying you have to have, I'll correct myself earlier. I said you have to have a nice camera. You don't have to have a nice camera to get the shot. But what you do have to have is you have to have a very good understanding of the limits of the camera. And I think for the most part they do, but it's that one shot where and I'm sure maybe it was like last day, last light, last shooting or whatever or something or, time constraint, got to get the shot. I don't care how it looks, just get the shot and we'll put it in or whatever. Highly highly possible.
Yeah.
I
Alright.
I'm I still don't like it. It doesn't I still don't like it and I kind of wish they had done, some had some extra shots or whatever. I would have even taken like a quick like almost Edgar Wright, like just snapshot of like dun, bun, dun, that kind of thing of like that kind of stuff. Because at least then I would have gotten the notion of these guys are well equipped and all this stuff just got destroyed. And I can still get that in the scene. I'm not saying I can't get it. I just think that the shot that they used to, really facilitate it isn't very good and kind of takes me out of the experience for that minute or that 30 seconds or whatever and I was very engrossed and
Mhm. Well, Spring, since you said you like it, do you want to talk about what you liked about the shot?
I like that
Or
it's a lawn panning shot after discovering there's an incident to show an established base that has been decimated and destroyed to then get to the reactions of the team that we've been following. And it's I like I am in agreement with Sinister that if they had better quality of equipment, it would have been way easier to make out what was a box, what was a stump, what was a radio. But I think it still had enough that you could tell where the outline of like the tent like top cover was and the
like where
table
the
that
base
had
began and
stuff and
ended,
yeah, you
kinda.
could make
Yeah.
out a gun, you could like make out shapes. I don't think it's to the point of being blurry, but it is like the pixel pickup isn't great at all. But I still like that it's a whole. I don't think it's 360 because it doesn't start on the
no,
team.
it's 180. It's
So
at 180 at best, yeah.
no, I think it's more than one. I think it's like 270. Because if you just went a
I
little
think it's
angle to the
275,
left,
if we're going to be exact.
I'm just saying
I
if you
think
went a
that's
little
fine.
angle to the left, you would have found the team there. But it didn't start the
Yeah.
shot on the team, so it went pretty far around.
It is interesting though because that is kind of. I mean, no. I think there. Cause I can understand what they were doing, what they were trying to showcase, and everything. So that obviously the shot isn't entirely flawed, but it is just this like it's kind of like one of the few times where the deficiencies in the production really comes through, and it's kind of like it really the reason that again I just got at me was because I think especially if they spent 6 years writing the script and everything, I don't think that shot that deficiencies in that shot you know should speak for a production that I think is very tight otherwise. And it just kind of saddens me that they just were like, okay, well, we're gonna have this shot. It doesn't really look very good. We're gonna put it in the movie, and it's gonna
I see.
you know
It's kind of an outlier when compared to the rest of the quality of what you
yeah, because
have.
I do think for most of the we've already kind of touched on a few little shots here and there that are just not every movie's gonna have 100% perfect shots throughout the whole thing. I mean, you're gonna get pretty close, but there's always gonna be some you just got to get the one take and you're done kind of thing. But uh, it is kind of yeah. It's like I said, it's I would love for this movie for as much work and effort that went into it to have as close as they could get. And I think that's like the one scene where I can at least say I'm like I think they could have gotten rid of it and subbed something else in, or they got some sort of coverage and put something else in. And maybe me asking for more coverage is a big task as well because this is also that requires X amount of film, X amount of time to pay the act, So, but like I said, I think a lot of work went into it, and to see like a very kind of pretty low tier shot is it is always rough for a movie.
Mhm. Well, Crimson, do you got a point you want to jump to?
Well, since we're on the topic of camera work, I'll point out I think my worst camera work in the movie was,
Yeah.
which was the helicopter.
Mm.
When they were all
Oh,
hopping out of the helicopter, the camera work was very disgusting to me. It was shaky, which is fine. You can do that. There's actually a lot of movies that have shaky cam when looking at a helicopter landing to show the impact of the wind. But the way the camera was looking at objects that are moving and then zooming in and out, it just looked like they didn't plan out what they were doing. And then the cameraman's like, "Oh, there's movement. Let me go look over there. Oh, someone else is moving. Let me move over here." It seemed very on the spot and not actually planned out like everything else in this movie was. It was an interesting thing that I don't think was very well done.
Mm.
I thought my thing with that scene was I thought it might have just been the perspective of the camera, but I thought there were shots where the helicopter was a model.
I'm not sure.
I yeah,
That would make sense.
I don't think was a model at all because of the movement inside, and then following the same shot, which was just cut, but the same shot of people getting out of the helicopter. I think it was a real helicopter. But by the way the blades are moving that's being picked up, I think it's just again on the camera quality and the shutter speed and how fast you can
Yeah,
pick it up.
maybe that's kind of what lended to the model look for me. Yeah, because I thought it wasn't the body of the helicopter itself; it was the blades that were off for me. And again, I'm in agreement. It was probably the camera with that.
Yeah.
That brings up an interesting question I have. Do we need this helicopter shot?
Kinda
Technically,
shows
no.
that the team's abandoned. They were dropped off, they
I
don't have a way
since it's the
back.
start it since it's the start of the war game exercise, I would prefer to keep it in.
Mhm.
The it because it shows that this is where it starts. They're now alone. This is where they're going to
Yeah.
be isolated. We of course we get all that through dialogue, but just getting
Yeah, I
dropped
know
in
we're
like with them already on the ground, I think might have
yeah.
been a little bit more jarring. I think to the audience.
It
I know we're big
shows that
proponents
they're
of, show
abandoned.
don't tell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it shows
Yeah.
abandonment and then also shows that there is, a pilot, so there is someone for them to contact via radio that we know of.
I guess my thinking is, like, we could I know, like, oh, a helicopter makes it look very, like, top tier and everything, and makes it look very important, even if it's just, like, a training exercise or something, like, okay, this is how it would actually be in a situation where you'd be airdropped in or whatever, by a helicopter and, on your own in behind enemy lines and everything.
What an idea to make a horror setting inside of a theoretical war game exercise.
Yeah,
That's a
I've
new
seen
one
a
for me. I think that's a
think
brilliant thing to try to exploit.
I think the only thing I've seen similar was in a Friday the 13th movie. It's not a whole that's not the whole movie plot, but like they have like a scene where they have like a company paintball or whatever, and Jason comes in and just starts murdering them.
Oh.
Yeah, that's not like at all like the
So much
same, but
red
that's just like
paint.
yeah, that's like the only thing I can kind of think of that's at all similar. I'm sure there's other ones, but
Yeah, I just think I don't know why it just never occurred to me, but it's a brilliant setting to have to create a horror movie in a war game exercise because
yeah,
you're intentionally isolated and you're walking around with your fake bullets and stuff like that. It's I don't know, it just struck me as a very brilliant setting from the
it.
get go.
I mean, I do love the war game idea. I think yeah, like my only like issue is because I was like, and I also know how expensive it is to rent a helicopter to do this shot and everything. So it was very very expensive, and I do kind of agree with Crimson a little bit that I'm sure they probably had to do like, okay, we only have like really one shot at this, so we're gonna, because we
Make the
can't run
best
it a
of it.
second time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is a little. It's like probably with the exception of I think the two things that I think we've already brought up. I think it's kind of the closest to like amateurish of the shots that we've seen in the movie or camera work wise. Um, but I can at least kind of understand some reason why it would be, for at least halfway why it would be so amateurish, because it is a very expensive shot to try to get, even if even if you have a high budget, it's very expensive.
Mm, no,
So
that's
good on them
fair.
that they managed to get it. Uh,
Yeah.
so I would, if I had the choice, I would like, like try to find like some kind of like workaround. But I also understand that for the setup, it kind of has to be a helicopter, and to make the most impact, it kind of has to be a helicopter.
Yeah. Well, since we've all gotten ours out, Springs, do you want to go to your worst shot of
I think
the
he did. Wasn't it the
Um,
woods
well,
after they get attacked?
no, no,
Or
I
no,
don't.
that was Ryder.
I don't know if I initially had a worse shot, but there is one I time stamped and wrote down that is in the sequence you were describing, Ryder, of them running um, right after the werewolf attack.
Mm,
So there's a part I think Cooper has Sarge over his arm, and he fires his
I
gun,
think
which
I
is
know what
firing
you're saying.
blanks. No, it's actually firing
No, yeah,
live
yeah,
ammunition at
bullets.
this
Yeah,
point. And the way the cameraman is, so the timestamp's 32:13, and it looks like the cameraman gets shot because Cooper
there was
fires the gun towards the camera, and the cameraman leans over like he's falling over.
yeah. I know there's a POV shot of like the werewolf vision of like the bullets whizzing past. Is that what you're talking about?
No, no, not that
no,
one,
I
because
know
that
what
would have
he's.
been the
I
night
found the
vision
thing.
look.
I found the thing he's talking about. He moves just ever. I don't know how you catch this stuff. It's insane. Are you just like watching this at like half
I'm the
speed or
camera
something?
guy. I see the shot
I know,
line up.
I know, but I, I barely noticed it, and you gave me a timestamp for for it. How did you just like see it?
Because it looks like he gets shot.
It's not that close. It's not. I refute that. It is no. There is a noticeable dip, but it's not as
Okay,
bad as you're
all
making
right.
it sound. Yeah.
All right, I see. I
Did
found
the
it. Yeah,
cameraman step in a pothole or something?
yeah. There's
He
definitely
just shifts ever so. He just shifts ever so slightly.
actually here's a good way to describe it. You know, in video games Crimson, when you're like in a kind of like a first person cutscene and you get like hit below the ribs and your kind of camera just kind of twists and shakes a certain way.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it was like.
Like it's
Well,
just like
I
I'm just trying
I
to think of
describe it
the
more
practical setting of
like when
it.
you're
So
playing Rainbow Six Siege
oh,
and you peek around a corner and lean. The cameraman leaned.
that's what I'm
I,
saying. What could it have been? The cameraman stepping in a pothole or a ditch
Maybe.
while filming? Because I don't think he shot the cameraman. So
Okay,
I'm
no,
thinking
he
of
didn't
what
actually
happened.
shoot the
So
camera. That's not actually what
it
happened. The way
could have
it's
tripped
lined
on a
up,
stick,
it
stepped in a
looks like the gun
ditch.
went off and scared the camera, or to the point of like dipping the camera.
I don't. That would be weird.
That
The
would be
cameramans
that's it.
would be afraid of that.
Possibly.
I'm
It
not buying
also
that
could
one.
be that pothole you said, Crimson.
Oh. Another
There
unfortunate
are
death for
dwarfs.
Greg the cameraman.
Fortunately, watching this on Hulu, so I can't half speed this at all. But I don't. It. I will say there is a bit of a shift. I'm not gonna say there isn't a shift.
Yeah, it's
It is
definitely a
not.
shift.
It is not as bad as I think it's being made out here. But I have to admit it's there.
I just don't know why there was a dip. Could have just been a continual
Well, I think
handheld
well, I think
track.
the guy was at least what I can see with the well, it's a we don't really know what the production was like, so I don't know how much they had access to or how much they didn't because there's a lot of shaky cam like handheld stuff, and at least for the time period, I don't know how expensive a Steadicam or tracks would be. It
We
was
don't
definitely
know if they had stabilizers or
yeah. I mean, like I
tracks
said,
or
they were
whatever.
able to afford a helicopter shot, but I don't know if they had to like, okay, we can get this helicopter shot, but we can't. We have to like, forego some other equipment for it. I don't know,
Well,
but
Ryder, I gotta ask you this because I mean the first scene kind of gave me this feel. Being that you chose this, do you know if this was a theatrical released film or was this
geez,
made for
I
TV?
knew this was gonna happen.
It is a theatrically released film, but it was only local in, I want to
Yeah.
say, Britain.
Okay.
I think.
Not
Uh, uh,
globally released.
yeah, it was not a global release film until later. And at that point, it's just let's see. It was released on DVD in the U.S.,
I think
but
like 2013 or something or 20.
yeah,
Yeah, pretty late.
Is there any reason you asked that, Springs?
Yeah, because of the quality of it. It reminded me of like old '90s Goosebumps or that was it Jonathan Frank's Beyond Belief like that kind of quality look to it. So I
yeah,
didn't know if it was like a
I mean,
televised
yeah,
film.
yeah.
I
Dark
don't like
Souls
I
was
like.
theatrically released in the United Kingdom on the 10th of May, 2002. Uh, and over the years it's gained a cult following. It only came to the U.S. in DVD form.
Okay.
Uh, so yeah, and then the collector's version, like with the director's cut and everything, was released properly in the U.S. in 2015.
Might have kept
Might have
from
been
the
shot
initial
on
release.
might have been shot on digital.
2002? Probably not.
If it wasn't shot
No,
on digital, it could explain some of the shots still left in to keep the
Well, I mean,
film
there's
because
foam
of
grain,
the
so that's never mind. That's not
well,
foam
yeah,
grain on the
but
set.
also the expense of the film.
Yeah,
Like they only
this
had
is
so much and they didn't want
probably.
to waste it.
I think
But
this is
I
this is
also
like
agreed with Sinister's point you made earlier about them being time sensitive because a lot of this movie that isn't taking place at night, air quotes,
mhm.
uh, is leading up to nighttime, sunset stuff going down. So there's only certain windows where you can actually film where it's not bright and sunny out.
At dusk.
Yeah. Well, and this is
Uh,
also like the
they could have a rushed production on certain
yeah,
scenes.
yeah. But well, what I was gonna say was I think that a lot of it I think some with the exception of some of the things we already talked about that are kind of hampered by this I'll say less expensive kind of film stock kind of thing or whatever that maybe make it look like it was made for TV. Uh, kind of gives it a like an air of authenticity that's like a 80s or 90s like or late 80s early 90s like horror film or something like from the era. This is definitely kind of sending up of like the splatter slasher films kind of thing. And I actually quite like for the most part, with the exceptions of that make it kind of deficient in aspects. But it does. I think it does work for it in an aesthetic way. But I don't know if it works for it in a technical way. My thoughts on it.
Mhm.
Yeah, another thing that kind of leaned me towards the possibility of it being like looks like for TV is there's certain points where it fades to black,
Oh,
which
like
gives
the
me the
scene
thought of like
transitions.
yeah, it
Yeah,
gives me a thought of like commercial break, like fade to black.
Okay. Well, I
I don't
didn't
know.
really get TV vibes, and I guess writer confirmed that it wasn't made for TV. But it's kind of a personal vibe thing when it comes to stuff like that.
No. I mean,
I
I
want
think
something to nail down.
some people think Avengers is a made-for-TV movie.
That's insane, but yes, that is true.
So it doesn't. We
Those opinions do exist
nobody's
out there.
safe. Yeah, nobody's safe. Not Dog Soldiers, not the Avengers.
Those are two movies that you'd never expect to be said in the same breath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I will actually jump to. There's a lot of favorite scenes for me here in the opening like hour. Um, but I actually really liked our introduction to Cooper in the middle of his own training exercise because
Yeah,
it
I do like
it
that.
also it does a lot in showing us both who Ryan is as a character and Cooper is as a character, and it kind of already pits them against each other. But we get that Cooper is, while he's going to be one of our standing or staying protagonists, we kind of already get like a sense of who he is immediately in this first scene. He's good at what he does, and he also has a conscience. You know, he's not
Mhm.
willing to break it over nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
it's
eggsy
kind of
approach.
yeah, I was gonna say it
Yeah.
kind of echoes what I wonder if that was kind of slightly a reference to the in Kingsman to that because he is kind of like, well, yeah, I have no problem killing a dog, but I want a reason to have
Yeah.
to, you know, I don't have a reason to kill this dog, and
Yeah, I mean, this was a standard like upper echelon military thing that you used to be that you were given animals that you were supposed to care for and raise for the duration of your training, and to complete your training, your job was to execute the dog.
mm,
That was a standard thing for maybe a decade, I want to say, in the U.S. before obviously we had a lot of issues that cropped out from that.
yeah, a lot of PTSD and certain things. I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
They also did that with combat medics, where they had a pet that they routinely had to harm to heal back up and stuff.
That is
yeah,
fucked up. That is yeah,
yeah.
that makes me sick.
Yeah, like I said, there's a reason why that a lot of that was stopped. But it's definitely it also conveys the sentiment of like, yeah, this is an elite squad. You have to, and it'll be able to do this in order to join in. And I also like this scene because it also sets up, in a way, what Sarge's character is going to be juxtaposed to Ryan
Mm.
for the group, and why Cooper looks up and respects him. Because Sarge is, spoiler, it is probably my favorite character of the film.
Ours is pretty good. There's a few I think somewhat like obviously like movie moments where it's kind of like okay, but realistically here we got to do like that kind of stuff. But yeah, for the most part, I think he's probably my favorite.
Yeah, there are a few awkward moments in the film, but I couldn't tell if that was just British humor that I don't understand, or if
Mm.
it was just me not liking the script. I couldn't
I
tell.
the Sarge made me think a lot of the guy Bob Hoskins. Um, that not like a little bit physically. He's definitely a little bit I think better looking than Bob Hoskins, but it kind of got a similar vibe of funny, a little dirty or whatever, but like got a good heart.
Yeah.
Comparing that
Did
to like
you?
Vincent from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Bob Hoskin, or
No, just Bob Hoskins in general. Like
in
the
general?
roles that I've seen like Bob Hoskins play are kind of like these, sort of working class guys or whatever, salt of the earth kind of dudes who, maybe have a little, don't wear their heart on their sleeves kind of thing, but they got, the good guys. And he has like a kind of a similar physicality, but I think he's in a little bit better shape. But no, not throwing shade on Bob Hoskins. Love the guy.
Um,
Uh, Writer, the scene you're referencing with the dog is Miley's favorite scene in the movie.
oh, why?
It all felt so artificial to me. It felt so
I think it's a
rushed.
movie,
Uh,
Crimson.
no, the whole killing a dog thing is in a lot of movies and shows to show loyalty to a superior or loyalty to an organization. And I think this is probably the worst I've seen it, where it did just come out of the all right, shoot the dog. That we don't see. It's not Scooter. It's not Scooter. It's not Scooter.
Cooper.
It is
Cooper.
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 Write it down.
I,
You think he'll switch
it
by
is
the
written
end, or
down. It's just my notes
he
are
just written down
half
a Scooter?
Scooter and half. uh, but I wish we saw a relationship with this dog because there wasn't any going into it. So I didn't feel like they earned this whole
Well,
kill the dog thing.
I
Well,
don't know if this will.
how Ryan presents the lecture is that how do you stop someone from falling? You stop their ability to track them completely, and that's by killing the dog because they were using the dog to track him.
I get how he was building up the scene, but with
You're saying that
Cooper's
point of him,
reaction, it
yeah,
felt like it wasn't earned for what his reaction was.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Because usually
yeah,
with these
give,
scenarios, and you brought up through history, the soldiers build a relationship with the dog before they put him down. In this, it just feels like he's like, all right, kill this random dog. It doesn't sound
well,
like it's
yeah,
his dog. It's just
well,
kill
yeah,
this
that's like,
dog.
but see, I think that is kind of like a thing. Like this is a random dog. There's really no, you have no stake or whatever in its existence or anything. So if shoot it. It is. I mean, at that point, it's no longer like the threat to him anymore. But it is still like it's like, okay, you've not bonded with this animal. Shoot it. It doesn't matter. And by him not doing it, it kind of it creates the thing of like, okay, well, if you're not going to just shoot like some random dog who you haven't bonded with, I don't think we're going to trust you to bond with an animal and then kill it. That sort of thing.
Um,
I don't know.
it lends.
I think you have a point. You have a point.
For
I
me,
don't see how he can be in this position of being offered like this special ops position and not have to tackle the thought of having to kill a dog that an enemy is using that hasn't attacked him. It's just there's a guard on patrol with a dog. That's never been a thing that has crossed his table. Like this is something you might have to do one day. It's I wish they personalized the dog. The fact that it's just a random dog, I think, hampers the scene.
I think it just lends to Cooper's character though. In that scene for me, the fact that he chose not to kill the random dog.
Yeah, because I don't know. There's like two separate. I mean, kind of get to the same conclusion, but two separate ways of
It's
like doing it. Like if it's a personalized dog, there's more of a moral conundrum than if it's a random dog. I'm not saying go. I'm not saying it's okay if you just go shoot a random dog because it's fine or whatever. But like from a military standpoint, it's like, okay, this is a random dog, no stakes, nothing. Shoot it. You can't do it. You're not fit for this. And I feel like even if it was like a personalized dog, it wouldn't have that same impact because it's a purely random dog. Shoot the dog. Do the whatever. And if he can't shoot a random dog, he definitely can't shoot a personalized dog. And either way, so either situation ends up being the same outcome. I but I agree with you that it's probably a personal standpoint of that you would prefer it to be a personalized dog because you would feel like there was more indication for it. But I would argue
Well,
that either way, the same outcome happens. So I don't think it's a big nick on the scene at all.
I also think it would help the line that Sarge delivers later to Cooper. Where he's like, sometimes you got to kill your own men. And I think that would be a good parallel. That if it was a personalized dog and he couldn't kill it being a teammate, and then him having to later have to face that with his actual men, I think that would be a good parallel. But they didn't do that.
I don't know.
Funny.
I think they. Yeah, I don't know.
I was gonna say, funny
These
enough,
Prince.
Crimson, kind of what you just said with that, I saw with Ryan in that scene of shooting the dog himself was his hatred towards like werewolves, and this was just another training exercise of like this is getting you closer to shooting down a werewolf or being on the team rather than just loyalty. And I saw foreshadowing towards that, but then it's kind of explained later that was not the purpose or anything really to do with Ryan's feel towards werewolves.
It could for
I
it,
can't comment on the werewolves.
yeah. The thing about foreshadowing is like I can definitely see that as a semblance of foreshadowing in that it's Ryan's guess dislike or distaste for them, um, at least foreshadowing it. Um, but I don't know if there's enough present in me for the scene for that to be like I guess the game changer. I suppose as to a new way to interpret the scene entirely because Well, with what you're saying, Crimson, I understand that, like, the idea that if it was a personalized dog, it would strengthen the connection between, to Sarge's line later on about, sometimes you have to, the worst thing about command is you have to kill your own men, or something to that effect is what he says. But in this case, I thought, I didn't really connect that scene to this. And while that would help, I read it as like the dog is a part of the training exercise ultimately, which is why I thought it was okay. Even though there is no personal connection, I didn't have an issue with them taking it that direction
I
because
can see
I,
the Crimson's point though of like if there could be a you know like a reappraisal of kind of the same situation later on, it would make a stronger thing. I can't agree with that. Like having kind of the message of the film be sometimes it's you gotta even if you
be
even if
willing
you
to
is your
sacrifice
but
your own men. Yeah.
yeah, you have to be willing to sacrifice to win sometimes. That you can't always have your cake and eat it too situations. I think is would be a kind of a nice little if we were gonna tie this up in a nice ribbon or whatever, that would be a pretty good ribbon for it.
I mean, I won't deny that. I think having the
Yeah, yeah,
personalization would make the scene stronger. I just don't think it's needed with what we have, if that makes sense.
yeah. I know. I'm in a similar
Yeah,
boat.
like I said, it was my least favorite. I don't think it's objectively bad. It's just
Oh,
Just
okay.
personally,
the
yeah,
lack
personally, yeah,
of
yeah,
the personalization of the dog made me
yeah.
think this scene was clunky and not good. But I'm aware objectively it does what it sets out to do. So
Okay. All right.
And I
Okay.
was just like I think some like the kind of the monologues they have here are pretty well done. I think they're pretty well written for what they
Oh,
are.
yeah, there's a lot of them that I wish I wrote them all down, but I really
Yeah.
like quite a few of them.
in,
Well,
in terms of the foreshadowing of this scene, I see it more as he kills the dog and then he gets killed by a dog later. In essence,
pretty much,
that's
yeah.
how I see
Yeah.
it as.
I mean, it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, there is that through line, I guess, from here to the end, where Ryan shoots a dog, and it's a dog that prevents him from outright killing Cooper at the end when he's a werewolf form, because the dog saves Cooper. Like,
yeah.
the whole through line of Cooper was kind enough to dogs and liked animals, and that was the character trait that ultimately saved him in the end because he didn't immediately want to kill the dog that he found in the house.
Yeah, way
Even
to
though
go,
it was
Sam.
kind of giving away the yeah, Sam. Uh,
Sprinks, you got a point? You'd like to
Yeah,
jump to?
sure. Was this film supposed to be a comedy in any way?
a black
Um,
comedy probably.
it's a black comedy, yeah.
Okay, because there's bits
In
that I
in
did find funny.
yeah, in the director, in some of the director's commentary that I've heard, in that the reason that the director ended up directing The Descent is because everyone was causing, yeah, it's just another dark British comedy horror film. So the director took that personally and decided to do a horror film with no comedy at all following this, pretty much.
Okay.
So he kind,
I mean, it's a
so it,
comedy.
yeah,
It's a comedy in the same way that like Evil Dead is a comedy. I mean, it's yeah, like yeah,
groovy.
that kind of yeah, groovy. Yeah.
But yeah, it is definitely supposed to be a black comedy with the British humor, and that's why I said for me, I don't have British humor obviously because I'm not British, but sometimes because usually British humor is hit or miss with me. And for me, I didn't really get much comedy out of this, but there were some things that I thought was just where I thought it was just weird that might have been intentionally funny, supposed to be funny, like the whole "put your guts back in." Like that for me was like
Yeah.
for me, that was like I can't tell if this is supposed to be like funny British humor or if I'm just missing it.
I mean, I think like this is obviously an outsider's perspective, but
Yeah,
I think a lot of it is kind of like, oh, we're so prim and proper, isn't it funny? We've got our guts hanging out, or something, like that juxtaposition of like, oh, this is how let's like gross somebody out, like this is disgusting, and that's funny because normally it would be really proper and it wouldn't be that kind of thing. I don't know, maybe that's part of it. I'm just that you know, that the juxtaposition or whatever of the normally very properness of it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Did you have something to add to that, Springs?
Yeah, like an
Yeah.
example was after Sarge gives the whole story on like Eddie standing on a anti-tank mine and blowing up, and then the devil tattoo, and then they're all kind of sad about it, and then a cow falls on them. I think the jump to something sudden like that, which is kind of like a jump scare-ish, but what I found was funny was just thinking a cow falling out of the sky on them, and I thought the French were attacking, and my mind went straight to Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and I found it hilarious.
see, I
Uh,
thought you were gonna say that. I thought you were gonna say like the part where he tells that really, kind of dark, depressing story, and then
And
the
then
guy
lightens through
makes
with the
a
joke.
very then the guy makes a very
oh yeah,
obvious
walks
joke or
into a
whatever.
bar joke.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's
which
building the
I will
setup.
say, I like I do think the cow part is funny, but I like that though because there is this, and I especially I'm gonna that's right, especially with guys, we don't really like I think we're kind of the exception, but we don't usually like being in like feeling feelings like 100. You know what I mean? I might be not
Yeah,
explaining
I know
myself
what
quite
you're
right.
trying to
Yeah,
say. It's that
like
typically men are not as in touch with their feelings as
yeah.
other
So like,
people.
oh, there's this moment where oh yeah, I'm my one of my friends died or whatever, and it was really traumatizing, and then that's kind of it, and somebody's like, all right, I need to break this tension, and I need to get us back to being fun or something, that's kind of I like that because I was like that feels genuine. That does feel like a situation that would happen if somebody's really down or whatever. Okay, let's try to liven this up back again.
That whole shocker me, the campfire sequence is probably my favorite scene of the film.
It's
Who
Uh,
very
would
well
have
acted.
guessed?
Crimson.
Who would have guessed? Ryder likes the sit down and talk about yourself scene.
It
Yeah,
likes the talkie scene.
yeah, I do, and I think probably my favorite moment of that scene. After I love Sarge's story about the devil tattoo, and I love the metaphor that he uses with it as well.
Devil
I
shake
thought
his ass.
it goes to the monologue of just I think it was brilliantly written. And then, but my favorite camera shot in this is when his, as you said, the guy starts telling the bar joke to set up the joke. The camera, there's a shot of Sarge where he starts smiling behind the cup. Like he's happy that he didn't dampen the mood. He's
Yeah.
happy that they're all bonding. Because like this is kind of it makes you feel like it's like for me, for someone who's in command, it's like the sergeant's kind of enjoying like his boys more or less,
Mhm.
being themselves and being open with one another because that's they're your band of brothers as they say. And
Mm.
it was a nice little touch, that little smile that Sarge gives before the cow drops down.
Yeah, I don't know what my like first thought would be after a mutilated cow drops on me.
But I would
But this is
definitely
probably
start setting up a watch.
yeah, this is probably pretty close. I'd imagine if I was in the same situation.
Yeah.
Was the cow the werewolves or Ryan?
No, that
Um,
was probably the werewolves.
It's the werewolves. From
Why
what
didn't they
I
attack then?
I don't know.
That's why I was asking if
I
it was
don't think
Ryan or
Ryan
the
just dropped a
werewolves.
cow on them.
Well, he said he was setting them up to be in this area
yeah,
and stuff. So I was like, okay, maybe that's him setting them up somehow. Because if it's werewolves, I don't know why they wouldn't just attack them.
it might have been just them trying to ward
Well,
them off their territory. Because I presumably the werewolves don't just kill. I was about to say. I think the opening scene already discriminates this, but
I,
they probably just don't. They probably just don't kill
well,
the people who are in their territory indiscriminately.
yeah,
Megan
that
says once a month, dozens of hikers get killed by them. I
uh,
think they just kill anyone who's around.
well, yeah, but I'm sure, yeah, but they don't like go like miles away or well, miles away, like hundreds of miles away or something. It's just pretty. It seems to be this specific area, kind of by the den, I guess you could say. Um,
Yeah, and if they're close enough to chuck a cow, I think they're close enough just to kill
Crimson,
them.
you got me pondering now. I might I might be on the side that it could be Ryan now.
If it's
Because
Ryan, I think it's better for it.
I
But
think it might be
I don't.
Ryan.
The
Because
one problem.
one of my big problems with the werewolves is, well, not a problem, but one of the things about the werewolves that I think dampen the fact that the cow is the werewolves is their strength. The werewolves are not strong.
Yeah, well, they're not strong like normally in their mythos, but
Yeah,
they're
I mean,
They're strong
fairly
enough to pick
consistent
up
for
a
what they
guy with
are.
one hand. They have some strength. They're not
Yeah, but they can't
super
break
super
down
strong.
doors.
yeah,
They can punch through them. Though.
No,
they can.
I saw these werewolves as they're not strong, but they are durable.
I mean, they're stronger than normal human,
Yeah,
but they're no Superman.
yeah, there's a limit. Yeah, because I mean, if they could break down doors, the movie would be like an hour long.
Wait, so what was the problem with the cow with you then, Sphinx?
Well, I was thinking
You
They
think
if
the
couldn't they
werewolves
couldn't
were
slow
too
it
weak to
down.
chuck the
well,
cow?
I'm not.
Is that
I'm
what
thinking
you're saying?
if the werewolves were that close to drop the cow, why didn't they just attack the whole group? So then I went
Okay.
to, if the werewolves threw the cow, would they have the strength in order to throw it just like behind
Actually,
them out of the way? And
you
I
know what
like,
would have
I
been,
don't think they'd be strong enough to do that.
maybe it could have been something that Ryan and his team did, and the reason for this is because they're trying to bait them into a specific area for the werewolves to hunt them.
Yeah,
Ryan gets killed a little after this scene, right? As well,
yeah. Well,
or doesn't get killed, but he gets hurt.
yeah, yeah. He
Um,
Yeah,
gets
it's the next
attacked.
morning.
That's yeah,
yeah. So this right here is what triggers them to go on a long-winded expedition in an entirely different direction just to investigate because they have their own
um,
sense of curiosity. So it could
yeah,
have been Ryan trying to bait them to a better spot in order to use them as bait. So it's very
yeah,
possible. Um, but like I said, it's kind of open-ended on whether it was the werewolves or Ryan. But if it is Ryan, it serves the story better.
Yeah, I
yeah.
think
I'd
it's
prefer if
Ryan
it
now.
was Ryan. That's kind of what I always assumed, that it was Ryan, even though there was like it was mutilated, possibly by something or whatever. I always assumed that it was, they either found a carcass or they mangled the carcass or something, and
I mean, you can mimic an animal destroying a fire or destroying the
yeah,
carcass, but it's it
yeah. I
takes.
don't.
Well, I
It's
think
better
the
if it's
mangled
Ryan.
remains would also help the aroma and sense of a werewolf to draw in closer than just,
Um,
fresh kill.
this does kind of bring up a little bit of a problem,
All right,
because I can't remember the name of the lady. What's
Megan.
her name?
Megan.
Megan. She says once a month, but if Ryan got attacked the night before and they're on the second day, that's twice then.
Well,
We
it's
should have
just the
moved her in
flyer in the
daylight.
morning, but yeah, they would have had to have been a nighttime attack though.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Megan doesn't know
Full,
what she's talking
Because
about.
if it's a full
that
because if it's
might
if
be.
it's a full 24 hours, I can buy them doing it. That morning, like
Like the
early
night
hours
of
without. Yeah, or like the morning of essentially like in the early hours where the sun isn't even up, and then again near midnight or whatever. But we don't really get anything on that.
like I did mention that we just talked about it just a little bit. Um, Crimson Eye and Spring, or Crimson Springs and I. Like I think my only real issue with the movie, like a wide ranging issue, is the rules of the werewolves seem a little bit mixed, and I don't really know what the rules are.
Yeah, they're
I
very
well,
loose with that. I
yeah,
agree.
I know traditionally what the rules of a werewolf is. Like I say, I don't know what those are, but I feel like, yeah, this movie is very, very loose, and it did bring up some issues that I think could have been cleared up, or and some that couldn't be. Just even if you tried to explain them, it would just make them worse. But yeah, one of mine is and I know that's kind of like there's different myths and folk tales for lots of different things, but I don't know. They kind of took like almost like a Hulk approach with the transformation, that it's brought on by like rage or something, and it's not like a full moon, but it is a full moon still, or I don't know. It's very
It might be
You mean the
because there's some as you said, the lore is different depending on
yeah. The lore is, yeah. There's a lot.
what mythology. There is a mythology where it is that the werewolf still turns all the time at night, but it loses control and frenzies under the full moon.
Yeah, and I've also heard ones where, like, they they wear, like, human skin or something, and they're basically wolves all the time or whatever, which seems kind of, I guess, maybe similar? I don't know. But I kind of would have liked at least I don't need a lot, but just some sort of establishment of just like, okay, this is,
Yeah.
Something
I
to
think
this is
explain the
this.
time difference change between Ryan and Sarge of their transformations. Because Ryan had
That
all day and then into the night before his changing, which could have been the Hulk approach you said, because then he got aggravated enough to change. Whereas
yeah.
Sarge didn't have it nearly as long, but then still changed, but that wasn't out of anger.
Wasn't Sarge just a couple hour difference
It was like
between
no,
In
it was
Ryan?
comparison to Ryan, yeah,
I
I
don't
think
who
powers
knows,
aren't
yeah.
that different.
Yeah, so I didn't have a problem with them. I had a problem with Megan. I was
Yeah,
confused by
that I
why
Megan,
agree.
she
Megan's the
turned when she did.
yeah, Megan was the confusing aspect of, I guess,
Yeah.
the werewolf changing thing.
That's yeah,
Oh,
I
that
don't
was,
yeah, I don't have an issue
but
with, Sarge or Ryan so much, but yeah, Megan I do have a little bit of an issue with.
because like for her, it seems like she was able to control it, but it was only for a limited amount of time. But we're not really given anything on that, whether the lore aspect of that. Which I
Yeah,
think
and I yeah.
there is some opportunities to have explored that in between Davos and Cooper talking, or her talking about werewolves and what she knows and stuff like that. There was an opportunity to throw some one-liners out there
Yeah,
for us to understand.
yeah,
Uh,
there are attempts. I'm not gonna say there aren't attempts because Megan kind of has like little moments where she's, like, well, there's just I just have the standard stuff or whatever, and that's
Well,
it. And I'm
even if she's like, uh, I even read somewhere that alphas can change whenever they want during the full moon,
mhm.
which could explain if she could be the alpha, and that could be how that would work, and use it in dialogue. But because we don't really know who the alpha is, she references an alpha and a beta. Uh, that would have
yeah,
been a nice thing. I think they could have implemented.
I
There's
think
a
that
couple. I like think it's a mix of like werewolf rules and then like wolf rules, which is kind of fun and interesting because I
the
do kind
pack
of like
hunting together. Yeah,
yeah, because I do think that's kind of something that's missed in a lot of, especially, werewolf movies and everything is usually it's just like one guy, especially the classic tale, it's just like one guy gets, bitten by a werewolf and then he becomes the werewolf and that's, it. So it does bring up some interesting ideas and things with the pack mentality and, there's another Crimson showed me, I don't remember the title of it, but there's another show where there's like werewolves and they like have like a pack mentality as well. That's kind of an
Bitten.
interesting bitten, yeah. Which sounds like a vampire show, I know, but trust me, it's a werewolf show.
and
Uh,
we have the Buffy the Vampire Slayer
and
episode
we have
where
Buffy the Vampire, yeah.
And
where
there's
there was
Twilight.
a bunch of them turn into hyenas or whatever.
What did you just say?
Twilight,
Huh?
that's a pack of wolves.
That's a pack of lies.
Uh,
Stephanie Meyer is fucking insane. Come at me.
oh, shots have been fired. No,
Uh,
but yeah, that does have a pack of wolves in it. He's correct.
he is technically correct. Yeah, I just
Yeah, not a
do
good
we
pack of
have?
wolves, but a pack of wolves.
Yeah. Do we have a explanation within the movie of Megan?
I
No,
don't think so.
She's
No.
part of the family and
it's
can
kind.
control herself.
I That's the other weird thing. I don't know if they're actually are they like actually all related, or is it just like they're all just werewolves who just happen to live together or
No,
whatever?
I
And
think they turn people.
yeah,
The way Megan told her story is I thought Megan was turned into a werewolf. Same with Ryan. He was not a werewolf from the start. He was turned into one due to the wound.
yeah.
That's why Sarge turned into one. I think they just expand their family. They eat a lot of people, but occasionally they also just expand their group.
Just like
That
the
I
was the
guess.
problem I
vampires in
had.
Twilight.
Well, okay.
We got a huge Twilight fan here.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was
somebody likes
confused
Twilight.
whether the werewolves wanted more or not, because they could have made a lot more werewolves, but
Yeah,
they actively decided not to.
I think Ryan was an intentional choice. And
because he was
I get
hunting them.
I
Yeah,
get the impression that Megan also was an intentional choice because she wanted to learn more about them, and
yeah, because
they
she
gave
had
her what she wished, just not the way she wanted it.
yeah, the classic monkey's paw scenario.
Yeah, and
Yes.
I don't think they would have let Sarge live if not for the group trying to fend them off.
Yeah, because Sarge definitely would have fought against them. I think he had that. They knew that mentality because they were gonna get him. They
Actually, that's an interesting thing. That means they trapped Ryan in the basement because Ryan was still somewhat cognizant. That's an interesting
yeah.
concept as to why he wasn't really a part of the big explosion upstairs is because they trapped him downstairs because, you know, he's
Well, he
freshly
did his
turned.
no, because he like escaped outside, didn't he? So I don't. That would be interesting if they
Well,
actually.
remember
Well, Megan
Megan
let them all in.
Megan had let them
Yeah,
all in and they were hiding in
yeah.
the basement. So they could have dragged Ryan in with them and just held him captive down there in some
It's
form or
true.
fashion.
Possibility. Yeah.
Which would be an interesting thing to think about because Ryan is
Yeah.
obviously there to hunt them
I
down.
that is
So
something. That is another thing. Like on the aspect of that, I'm kind of. I kind of need to know how cognizant they are. Like, how aware are they, or is it purely animal instinct once they become? Because Ryan definitely has a motive for attacking Cooper. But also if he's just like an animal or whatever, he's got to eat.
I
So
think they're cognizant enough because
Three,
Megan's the one that let him in,
yeah, three of them
and they didn't
stood
yeah,
kill
behind
her.
Megan.
Yeah,
yeah.
they
Oh
didn't
yeah.
make any move to try and kill her. So
Well, yeah,
And
but they
one
yeah, I
zipped
guess
open a tent instead of just ripped it
yeah.
open.
Okay.
it's true.
So
So they are cognizant, I think, enough at
They're
least.
smart enough to
I
And
I,
then
I
leave
guess
the barn.
disable cars. They know how to
yeah.
disable
Well,
cars and
yeah.
stuff like
So
that.
I guess I just would have preferred like an exact baseline or something. Like, are they like
I
they're
agree.
smart enough to open a tent and they're smart enough to destroy a car, but they also, you know, I don't know
They don't
the
have any
I need
creative siege
I need
tactics.
yeah
Yeah,
I need like a
They can't
I need a
shoulder bash a
low
door.
yeah I need a low tier skill and I need a high tier skill. I need to know where the cap is at.
Well, and even though they're not crazy strong, they're still stronger than normal people. So what they could have done is just reach under the doors once they're in the house, because there's usually
And
a
then
gap under the door in
yeah
inside houses, and just rip it from the bottom instead of
yeah.
having to punch a hole through the center of it.
But
But
punching a hole looks so much more cinematic than that.
that's true.
Again, it's like that classic thing of like, why don't we just open the door? Why, like you have to be just stupid. They have to be just stupid enough that the guys can be stupid and get away with it still. It's that classic thing of horror logic. They can't be too good. If they're too good, the movie's over too quickly. There has to be a balancing act there, which unfortunately makes them look weaker than they probably should be, but uh, it's not too much of a problem.
I, yeah.
Though Spoons' kitchen fight, maybe a little bit too much.
Just throwing
That
pots,
was
pans, and plates.
that
It's
was
cool, it's cool, it's cool, but it breaks a lot of stuff, or at least comes really close.
my favorite moment of that whole scene was when he was stabbing when Spoon would just stabbed him repeatedly
Yeah,
and then Ralph just sat up like it was he just got
that was
over it.
brilliant.
That's durable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess here's a question for all of you. What do you think of the creature design?
it's
I
okay.
like the head.
The head's good. The
You
body
don't like the
looks like
body?
a leotard, like a
Yeah,
skin
the
tight
body is a
leotard.
skin tight gray suit.
Yeah.
I mean,
Um,
filming at night definitely works to their benefit with
Yeah, it's
the
when they're inside and they're moving around, they look really low budget. But when they're like kind of outside and you don't see a whole lot of them, it's really good. It's the alien effect.
yeah, the less is more in the case of the creature
Yeah,
design here for
which
sure.
is kind of the problem when it's like there's like five of them and they're all in the house and everything. It definitely starts to look its budget,
Yeah,
which is
the
unfortunate.
shadows dark like silhouette casting definitely does an amazing job because the head is pretty much usually the only thing you can see and that's the strongest part of the costume.
Hmm.
But there are a few shots where it does look a little bit finicky in terms of
Yeah,
where setting
I'm
something.
on the opposite. I thought it looked really good even in the light. The shadows do help, and there's some good shots they do utilize with
yeah.
shadows, like when the one breaks through the window in Sarge's room. That looks
You
really
know
good. That's a
what?
good shot.
Yeah,
On rethinking it, I think my problem isn't so much the outfit, it's the movement that they
That's
have.
what I was about to lead
Yeah,
into.
the movement is
With
my problem.
Spoon's fight in particular, what the way the wolf is fighting him looked off. It looked like a man in a suit fighting him, but the suit itself looks good. It didn't feel like a werewolf was fighting.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
I think it was the
Yeah.
actor's portrayal in the suit, not the actual suit.
I'll
Well, they
say
probably couldn't get anybody.
better than Teen Wolf, not as good as American Werewolf in London.
No, American Werewolf in London is top. I've never this there was a couple of scenes that kind of came close, but yeah, no,
Yeah, for
I've never seen a
practical
better
werewolf
wolf.
at the time. So,
Yeah, I no, even like
I mean, if
maybe
you want to go see
that
like Remus Lupin in Prisoner of Azkaban, that's a good looking
uh
werewolf.
he looks like a naked mole dog or something. I
The
don't,
werewolf in
he
Doctor
looks
Who
good.
looks good if it
Yeah.
had a better budget.
Yeah,
I don't
the
like.
Sure.
the werewolf in Van Helsing looked pretty cool.
Uh, the werewolf in Werewolf by Night is pretty good too.
Oh,
That's a
yeah,
close.
that's practical.
Yeah, that's a
Is
close one
there
for me.
is there a werewolf in League of Gentlemen or League of Extraordinary Gentlemen? I feel like there was a
Kind
werewolf.
I
of.
haven't seen that one.
Yeah, there. Oh, yeah, there is. There is. Yeah, there is a werewolf. I think. Maybe I'm misconstruing Mr. Hyde. I might be misconstruing Mr. Hyde, but I'm pretty sure there's a werewolf. No, no, the lady turns into like a bat or something. I think that's the yeah
Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah that's what it is.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I'm thinking about it now, Crimson. I think I'm in agreement. I think it's the movement that's off. I'm thinking
Yeah.
I'm running the werewolf scenes in my head again. And I think that's probably closer to what feels off
Yeah.
about the creature design for me. It's
Well,
not the
they
design is really
show
the design itself, it's the movement.
yeah, Ryder, you touched on there was like point of view shots showing them like booking it through the forests, and then when they're up close, they're slow.
There's like this one scene in the house, or like I think when it's in the house or it's breaking in or something, and it does this like weird like shoulder like movement around something, and
Well,
it reminds me of a like
it didn't feel like an animal. It
it
felt like a
reminded me.
person.
You know what made me think of like the skin tight? It reminded me of, like Filthy Frank or something. I don't know if anybody's gonna know what I'm talking about. Filthy Frank.
Not me.
no, sorry,
He had
man.
like the pink guy or whatever. He was he did
It's
he
time to
invented.
stop.
Okay. Okay. He invented pink guy, and
Isn't that one of
he
his
didn't
things?
invent pink. What? It's time to stop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Filthy Frank. He invented what's the um I'm blank. No, I'm so old. What is it?
You're definitely an old soul.
Harlem. He
soul
invented the Harlem Shake. That's what he invented. He did the Harlem Shake, and he had the pink guy, and yeah, he would like do these like weird, like really creepy things with movement or whatever. That's what it made me think of. It's like these weird like shoulder rolls, and like they're moving their arms and stuff. I'm like, that's not what a werewolf would do. It wouldn't be like creepy like that. It would be like really like brute.
Interesting thing, Spring. So you brought up the movement outside being really fast and the movements inside the house being really slow. I actually don't have much of an issue with that, and the reason for that is because if you put a dog in an open field and they go full sprint, they can go in a straight line or dodge through objects really easily, but they will not be able to bank a corner worth a damn. Like
Let's
they
talk
would.
to our resident dog expert, Crimson. Crimson, is that true?
Well, well, another thing in regards to this, when we see them moving fast outside, we don't really know if they're standing. They could
That's
be on
true.
fours.
It's kind of
On a horse?
there's
On
only one.
fours.
Oh, on
There's only
fours.
one.
Okay.
Yeah, there's only
On a
one
horse.
shot where I thought they were potentially standing, and that's just because the POV was slightly above the humans, and that's the one where
Oh,
the
that
bullets
is
kind of whiz past the camera in the
Made like a
werewolf kind of vision.
yeah.
yeah,
Like my
made like
thing
a
isn't them
synapse.
being slow walking around in the house. It's them in a combat, fighting part, especially spoon in the kitchen.
Yeah, you're saying his hits and everything are very
Yeah.
slow, is what you're saying.
Like
Yeah.
he even just
Okay.
grabs him by the neck and just holds him against the wall, which could have just be like showing off its power of like no matter what you do to me, I'll still take you down.
That's kind of how I read it. Yeah.
I wonder if that's their version of playing with food.
I assume.
Like,
Yeah, they're like, okay, we've got you, but let's see.
Could be.
what
Come
you
on.
got?
Also,
Yeah.
another comedy little thing: spoon in the kitchen.
Yeah. Spoon in the kitchen.
Yeah, that for me was like I don't know if this is British humor or if this is just something I don't understand. I labeled it under British humor. I think that one because especially if you had a comedy thing for that Springs, I'm more leaning towards it was
I
definitely.
think
Well,
the
there's
yell he
just so many
provided
little
hinted at it being more
little
comedic.
hints of comedy that I'm like, I think this is supposed to be funny at parts. Another one
I
that
think
stood out
it's
in my
definitely
I
notes.
don't know
supposed to be
what.
funny.
Another one when Bruce
Yeah.
dies and Sarge is like looking for Bruce, and it shows Sarge, and the camera just pans down to show Bruce's dead, bloodied face, and pans back up to Sarge.
Mm.
That was
That
all.
isn't supposed to be comedic.
Bruce's death, I have seen in I think a compilation at one point, and I like it because it's very unexpected.
Oh, running so
That
fast he impales
if
himself.
if I was in like a monster movie situation, right, and there's something chasing me, that's how I would die. I would get killed by an
You were
inanimate
killed
object or
because you were
something.
not looking in front of you. You were
Yeah,
trying to make sure you didn't get hit by the monster
I
behind you.
I love that subversion of expectation that it's like because you hardly ever really see it anymore. Of just like it's not the like I would love a Friday the 13th movie or a Halloween movie. And maybe there's a moment of this, or if like he's chasing somebody or whatever, and then they just like end up like garroting themselves or something, and it's just like what? Like oh man, I didn't get to do it or something.
Well, if the whole movie was the accidental killer, where
Yeah, the
everybody
accidental.
accidentally kills themselves avoiding this.
That's okay. There is a movie like that. I just remembered, like, it's my
Right.
synapse. Tucker and Dale versus Evil. That there's a lot of that stuff in it where they're like accidentally like serial killers or something. Like they think
Well,
they're like yeah,
yeah, I know what you're talking about, Sensor. Yeah, that movie.
yeah.
I think we touched on it in Shaun of the Dead when was it Shaun uses a shovel or something to skewer the guy to a tree,
The tetherball.
the
pole.
tetherball
Tetherball pole.
pole
Yeah,
to
yeah.
stab him to a tree, and we found that a little like too out
Super
of
strength.
too little much. I kind of felt that with Bruce running into the branch of a tree to skewer himself that far into it.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
felt the same.
I felt the same, but I like the subversion, so it works. It works more.
Yeah.
It works for me more than it doesn't.
Yeah,
He's got body armor on. It's a fat stick, so it takes more force to get that pushed in.
I was if it was like a sharpened spike, like hey, the werewolves kind of have started doing this to trees out here just because they know that people that they chase run through parts of these woods. I think I would have been more okay with it. Because I'm more on Sprinks is okay. I think he goes a little too far down. He's supposed to be wearing body armor because he's a soldier. I think he could definitely like really hurt himself on it though, and that's what stops him from being able to run away.
Yeah,
That
like
would be
I-
fine
the
with
speed
me.
of a run, I can see like maybe an inch or two into him to cause pain, and then he pauses and then decides whether to like back himself out and take it off, or stay there and ask for help or in agony. But skewering himself a good foot down a branch
Yeah.
is
Like I said, in isolation, I could see all the faults you're pointing out, and I agree with them. But I like the idea too much for it to. I don't
killed
think it's
himself not by
too so.
werewolf.
Yeah, that's. I mean,
Yeah.
I would rather if I had the choice, I'd rather it make total sense and be legitimate. But as it is, I just like that they had the idea and they did it. And it's. I think it works. At least it's not as bad as like the freaking blurry camera 270 or whatever, where I like the idea and it wasn't executed at all well, but this is at least 50% executed well because I like the idea enough and they actually tried to make it work. I think for the most part.
Well, I think the crux is the body armor. If he didn't have that, I could see it more because he's probably 200 pounds with the equipment he has on him running.
Yeah.
So there's his body weight, there's the speed, and then there's the diameter of the stick. We don't know if it was pointed or blunt, but if we're going with it was fairly pointy. That's a lot of force in a small area, which could puncture a human pretty far. But the body armor, I think, is the problem where it wouldn't have caused a problem.
I think I can rewrite it to make it work.
Yeah,
move the stick up about a foot or 2 feet, and it's the head.
Hit him in the throat.
And it goes in the throat, and then through the mouth. Yeah, there we go.
That would fix it for me.
Yeah,
yeah, that would fix it for me as well.
Yeah.
I'm kind of, I think that there's a lot of objective problems with it. I do, however, agree. I think I like the subversion, the idea that you just weren't paying enough attention to where you were going for this to happen to you while you're being chased.
Yeah, I kind of want to touch on because we've touched on a little bit that they're very professional, like out, kitted and everything.
Mhm.
The worst soldiers I think I've ever seen in a movie. Just blind firing all the time. No controlled bursts. Well, that's one thing. I mean, he's just. I think Terry. I think that's Terry. Is just like a scaredy boy or whatever. But No, like they're supposed to be highly
The,
trained, and they're in
the
the
mail
situation.
slip and everything.
Yeah,
Well, in comparison to like the Navy SEALs or whatever, Ryan got
yeah.
destroyed or whatever. I don't know what they're supposed to be, but these people are just supposed to be the regular army guys.
Well,
So
he's like there's like are like the best in the
The
division or
Black
whatever. These
Ops
are like
division.
yeah. No, well, no, I don't know they're Black Ops because no, Ryan's team is like special
Ryan's
ops.
special
Yeah.
ops.
Yeah,
Ryan's
Ryan is
special
special
ops,
ops.
but
These
these
guys
guys
are
are supposed
below
to be
that.
army.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
are
these
just
are
army.
below that, but these are like yeah, general army. But at least Sarge, and maybe he's being nice. He just says these are like top men or whatever. Or like these are highly trained.
Um,
And I will agree. I think they're. I said they were the worst. I don't think they're the worst I've ever seen. But there's just like so many moments of them being deficient where it doesn't really feel. And I know like this is a situation that wouldn't happen in the military. You wouldn't encounter werewolves hypothetically. So there's a little bit of, but it's like they're just shooting over the top all the time, no controlled fire, nothing. And even after they have like a limited ammunition stock, they're still just like blind firing all the time.
That
I
was my
actually,
issue.
I,
Get ready.
I think well up until they get into the house, I think actually all the stuff they do in the field in the open field, I actually do think it's pretty
Yeah,
good.
I'm fine with
I think
I'm
that's
fine with, like I
fine.
said, I'm fine with the field stuff. It's okay because they haven't
Everything,
really. They're just like trying to, they're doing cover fire so that they don't,
yeah,
that's fine.
they're
Once they
covering
take
footage.
inventory in the house,
Well,
they know
Yeah,
they're limited. And the big one for me is the stupid mail slot. He just unloads an entire clip after they know they don't have ammo. And later, when Cooper's like,
Three
controlled
round
3 round
burst.
bursts, and everybody's full auto the whole time. Like,
Yeah,
maniac.
that to me is where I start taking issues. I think everything up
yeah.
to the get to the house though, I thought was actually really good because
No, I agree.
I like when Cooper's trying to balance Sarge in one hand. He's blind firing, beneath the hip, but that's like that. That to me, that's in character a little bit. And then they're doing the whole tactical retreat thing. They got the guy. They're all taking turns
Uh,
aiming, retreating a bit, aiming back again. I think, and then Sarge delegates. He wants someone to operate his rear guard. Rear guard got killed, but it's one of
yeah.
those things where they actually did a lot of intelligent soldiering
Oh
things
yeah.
out in the field that I actually quite
It did.
liked.
Yeah, no, I like I said, the field stuff I'm more okay with because there's definitely a reason for them to be doing what they're doing, and it makes sense and everything. I was specifically just mentioning the house stuff is because they at that point they have the knowledge to know that they can't just be willy nilly and all this other stuff, and it never really changes. It's even after like Cooper says, I think like twice, like watch your fire, control burst or whatever. It's still even he does it like he's just like unloading clips and everything, like
Yeah,
it just like is a little bit too.
it
I'm like
is. I mean, it is difficult to do just 3 round bursts when these
it did
things
no I'm yeah
is just tank your shit. But
yeah
I still think I would have preferred to see him at least try to adhere to that, and then realize that that's just not going to work.
yeah that's see that
Well,
yeah
he says
that would have
controlled first, and then the next scene where someone's shooting, it's full auto, holding
Yeah,
down the trigger.
exactly. Yeah, like I'm agreeing with
yeah
Didn't
you. I think,
retain anything he said.
yeah,
yeah
I'm agreeing with you. I think that's a problem. Yeah.
just the it for first half, it's really well done. I think tactical, soldier stuff. I have to agree. I think they keep it pretty on point. But yeah, that once the house happens and they set up these restrictions and they're still doing the same stuff, it's a little bit of it's an issue for me.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I was really worried I was gonna hate this movie because they did something in the very in the scene where
Yeah,
the Cooper and the gang get dropped off from the helicopter. The first thing that one of the soldiers did is just rip their helmet off.
yeah, that
I
was
was really annoyed
yeah.
with that,
Hmm.
and then I'm like, okay, that better he
Uncomfortable.
better put that back on, and I'm really happy he did. But I was really annoyed that was the first thing that he did.
Ryder, you and I have a similar thing. I was like, okay, why are they taking their helmets off immediately after they land? This is ridiculous.
And then they go through the whole thing like, oh, this is a training exercise. We're gonna start. The training exercise starts here. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, all right. I'm not angry anymore. All right, we're good.
And somebody forgot their watch to sync up time.
Yeah, which I actually think
Uh,
is a nice little detail that sometimes you
yeah,
just forget
yeah,
these little things, and
yeah. I agree.
and then Sarge just decides to count, as he says. And but they're keeping track of time for Sarge, which I think adds to it. It's because
Yeah.
then it becomes a reminder for the audience, but it's not just a reminder for the audience; it's in character when he's keeping track of time for Sarge.
Sprinks, I heard you trying to jump in during the whole
Yeah,
ammo.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not the ammo. Just
Like,
I don't. Rem-
there,
I didn't
there
write down
goes.
which soldier it was, but who's the one who got his gun jammed 3 times?
That was
That
Oh,
was
the first one who
Bruce,
died
wasn't
That
it?
was
on
Bruce.
the.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
That was Bruce. That was crazy. I don't know if that was played off
Um.
of. That's supposed to be a comedic bit, but I thought that was too much.
mm,
Uh,
no, that's
I
just that.
I
That's something
thought
that
there
happened.
was magic involved. I thought the werewolves had
Magic.
like an. Yeah, I did. I
No.
thought
Oh,
the
come on.
werewolves had like area like EMP or something, some sort of effect around
No, you
them.
did
Well,
not.
at that
Oh
point in the
my
I
movie,
god.
you don't
honestly,
know much
I
about them,
honestly
so
did. Seeing it jammed 3 times, like that's not normal. There's something going on here. uh, so I actually did think there was a magical element with the werewolves.
Is that like that's an MP5, right?
yes, I think
Yeah,
that's
it's
what
an
they were
MP5.
issued with.
I think those are very common to jam, especially
Yeah,
if
but
it
no
has
one
been an
else,
attack, right?
I'll
no
look
one
it
else
up.
had their
Hold on.
gun jammed,
Yeah, I don't know.
and it was just Bruce. That was 3 times in a row.
Well, yeah, because he needed to die. No,
Yeah,
it is
so
excessive.
I thought it had magic problems there, but obviously that was not the case. That was just very unlucky
Yeah,
on Bruce, I guess.
yeah, bro. Oh, Bruce.
Which I don't think they needed to do that because we see the
Well,
werewolves
yeah,
are
because he
pretty
could have
much
died anyways.
invulnerable anyways,
They
Yeah,
so
could
he
have
could have
jammed
still
it
shot
once,
and
and then he got
nothing
scared and
happened.
ran.
yeah, but it
Alright,
really, I mean, it built up
basic thing
tension
I
though.
yeah, basic thing I just found. For MP5s, you need to strip your gun and clean it thoroughly after every time you shoot it because it will jam quite regularly.
Okay, but they didn't even get a shot off, so technically, I guess that doesn't
Yeah, and so
really.
there's
Yeah.
not really need for
So,
that. My
so is
best
it an
my
issue
best
that his gun jammed multiple times when that's kind of the design of the MP5, or the other way where everyone else's MP5 never jammed?
Oh, it's implying
everyone
he didn't have a clean gun
it's
based off
implying
what
he didn't
Yeah,
have
Ryder
a
just
clean
said.
gun.
yeah.
And
I mean, he did.
you gotta remember too, this is not their guns. Remember, they switched out for the Spec Ops guns
Yeah,
So
because
they
they
should
Well,
be
they
clean.
decided to go
the
light
Spec Ops
ammunition.
would clean their guns, though.
Yes,
yeah, they
exactly.
would.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm agreeing with you. The only defense for this, other than one of them, I could write off as convenience because gun jammings does happen. It just doesn't happen this regularly. The only thing that I could say in potential defense for this is that it just happened to be the gun that was lying in the dirt the entire time.
I will admit it's a little excessive. I could see like one gun jam
I
or whatever,
I
and
thought it
then
would. I thought it was going to be a really cool scene at first, which is gun jam. He just cleans it out, clocks it, reloads it again. I'm
no.
like, all right, it can fire now, and then it still doesn't work. I'm like, oh, okay, this is a movie thing then. Damn.
All right, one more time. Oh shoot, it didn't work again.
But don't you feel that like pent up like stress of like that situation when it happens and
I mean,
it
I wouldn't
keeps
want to be
happening?
him.
Me
Yeah,
neither.
it's
I
a
wouldn't want to be him
horrible
even if the gun did
situation.
fire.
Something I'll touch on
uh,
that we haven't touched on yet is the score
touch it.
of the movie. There
It
isn't.
goes da da dun da dun.
Well, it's very light, if that, at a lot of scenes. A lot of scenes don't have a score bit, but when
Mhm.
they find Ryan and then a werewolf is coming at them to when they get to the truck, the score comes in, and I did like that it just starts off with like what I have here. It starts off as just kind of strings and some drums, and then when they get into more of the combat of the werewolves, it kicks in horns to give it more of like a tense feel to the environment, and I like that. And I think that score, or maybe that piece of it, only appeared twice. One here, and then one kind of halfway through the house bit.
Well, didn't it come back for Sarge's death?
I don't know. I don't think
Because
that had horns.
I oh, that was all horns, buddy. That's actually one of the only things I wrote with music is they went hard with the horns on on Sarge.
I guess I'll
Uh,
Hard
be
with the
missing
horns
that.
on Sarge.
I really like the song they used for Sarge's death. It really built up. It wasn't really fully patriotic, but you kind of got those vibes. Like he felt like he succeeded in what he's
He's
about to
doing,
achieve.
yeah,
Yeah.
trying to save
He's
at least
doing
one of
it.
his men. You know.
Yeah, it felt like a victory song, even though he was losing himself pretty much. But I thought they did well with that.
Um, Something I didn't quite like, but I don't know how customary it is to the military ruling. When they go into the house and search, they don't go in pairs.
They did, or at least that there were two that entered the house initially, but not into like rooms
No, when
together.
they're
If that's what
searching
you mean.
rooms, they're not in paired.
Yeah, they only. To be fair, they don't have many men to spare. I'm kind of 50-50 on that, though. I understand what you're saying.
Were they going in thinking this was a hostile location, the house?
I think
They
so.
were
But
they
they
weren't
just
going in
knew the
hostile.
occupants weren't there. That's
They
all
just
they
knew the
knew.
occupants weren't answering. At least, yeah. Now if they knew it was hostiles, they wouldn't have done that. They just they just took two. They took a risk, admittedly, knowing that no one was answering them. But at that point, they just needed to check in and get their wounded inside.
Yeah. I mean, they did a sweep and clear, guns raised. It wasn't just rush everyone in and then, take a
Well, no, they
breather
weren't
Yeah,
at the
careless.
entryway.
yeah. But because there was no sign that it was occupied and no sign that it was hostile necessarily, it was kind of they decided they absolutely took a risk with just two of them going in and sweeping an area. But I think it works within the context of the scene because they need two people out to guard the two wounded, and then they have Megan, and then there's just the two of them that's left. So I think they made a good decision with just the two of them going in.
Protect
Yeah.
the wounded and the civilian.
Yeah.
I'll say it was at the point we get introduced to Sam the dog that I had an idea of something. So Crimson, you thought possible use of magic. Uh when
Initially, I just wait that later.
when we
But
got introduced to Sam the dog and the scene we touched on with Ryan and Cooper about shooting the dog, I wrote down my guess that the dogs were werewolves and not humans.
Hmm. That would have been
Now
interesting.
that wasn't the case.
Yeah, but what? Yeah, yeah. Explain your idea though. Like, what's?
Well, I thought we never saw a human change into a werewolf at all before, and we hear in the very first scene with the camp just the noise, the howling of wolves. Whether that could just be a wolf or it could be a werewolf. I guess take it as a werewolf being the scene and everything. But then after that, immediately being told of Ryan shooting dogs and not warning Cooper to like shoot his own men, like what Sarge said. Sometimes you got to shoot your own guys. Of getting that feel or help of, as you said, if it was like a personal dog he'd been trained with forever to then shoot, it was like a slight thought in my head, like, okay, maybe dogs change into werewolves, so it's like shoot dogs on command, and if you can shoot a dog, then you're ready to join our team. And then when they get in the house, it's our first introduction to Sam, and Sam wasn't around the whole time, the dog, and I went, okay, maybe this dog will change inside the house or something.
Yeah.
So
how
that was
long
a
did you
guess.
Maybe what it
think of this
maybe
theory?
yeah, I like the theory.
Um, when the wolves were attacking and Sam did nothing, he didn't change. Then I went, Sam's fine. He's just a normal dog.
So the final siege.
Kind of, yeah. The wolves are
Okay.
outside when they take Terry away, stuff like that, and Sam's not doing anything.
Isn't it like a weird situation because they're werewolves and they own a dog? Isn't that kind of like
Well,
I
a
I
mean,
mean, they're not werewolves all the time, as they
No,
said.
no, no, but I'm just saying that but they know they're werewolves and they have like a dog that they own.
that doesn't sound too weird to
Well,
me.
they never attacked the dog, except
I'm
for Ryan, I
imagining it
guess.
like uh
I actually one of
yeah.
my theories when they took Terry, I actually thought they were going to do a hostage exchange, like they wanted their dog back.
So, yeah, that would be something that I would like something to show, if they wanted to show like more intelligence or whatever, like those kind of like a bartering or like a strategy kind of thing. Because I
Explains
mean,
why they
they
kept
do
him
have
alive.
some of,
Yeah,
well, yeah, well, maybe the meat just tastes better when they're still mostly alive.
How
Uh,
quickly did you guys figure out Megan, if at all?
I didn't until the end. There was like little hints there and there that she knew more, but I thought it was just like she was part of the you know,
I
Secret
think it
Service
was.
thing. Yeah, I thought that was it.
I didn't connect her to the family. I connected her to Ryan. She had some history or something with Ryan.
Yeah. Once they were more explicit about her connection to Ryan, that's when I took it. Oh, she's one of the family.
What did
She's just stuck here and wants to leave, and you know.
Isn't, like, the reveal of her working with Ryan where she says, "Shut up, Ryan." Didn't they say his name before that? So why would that be, like, a
Yeah,
clue in
they they,
that
they,
she
Yeah,
they did.
I guess it was her passion when
Yeah,
saying
like,
that.
"Shut up, Ryan. How did you know his name?"
Uh, okay. Well, interesting. I thought they were pretty heavy with hinting she was a werewolf, so I thought you guys would have got it.
I mean,
I
there
didn't
was,
get the
like
connection with her and Ryan
I
uh, Cooper brought it up.
until after she turned into a werewolf.
What
Oh,
were
she
the
Well,
didn't
hints?
no,
exactly
until
fully
until
turn.
Cooper's like,
Yeah,
well,
yeah, yeah.
what's going on here? You know Ryan, something like that. I
What were the
didn't pick up on her and Ryan, but the
what were the
werewolf
tip
stuff they
offs for
kept
you?
focusing on her for prolonged periods of time whenever
I
they're talking about the
I
werewolves.
like I
Yeah,
said,
Yeah.
I picked up on that she knew more than she was saying, but everything just seemed to tie in with like she was part of the mission or something at some capacity, and she just doesn't want to say it because she knows they already don't trust the guy who was running it, so they're not going to trust somebody who was subservient to him.
I
Crimson,
think
looking at my
the
notes, I had a different guess. Apologies, writer. Uh, looking at my notes, I had a different guess because there were shots of Megan just looking out windows at a time, or
Mhm.
like looking at the barn. I didn't think of a family. I thought one of the werewolves could have been like her husband.
and what that's why she signed up for the Black Ops thing potentially.
Yeah, that's why there's just parts of shots of Megan just looking out windows or looking around, but she's not like scared or armed or anything.
Yeah,
So I thought it was a
I
love
think
interest.
yeah, I think the
Love.
yeah, I think the intention, obviously, on your first experience of this is that you're supposed to connect her with Ryan before you connect her with the werewolves, which actually I think
Oh
works to the
yeah.
reveal's
I
strength.
I failed.
Yeah, which
Well,
works to the
surprise,
reveal's strength.
surprise.
Yeah, surprise, surprise. You look through it. But I'm yeah, I think now that I'm looking back, there are a lot of lingering shots on her when they're talking about werewolves, but for me, that never spoke to me, "Oh, she's a werewolf." That spoke to me, she knows who Ryan is, and that's what she's here for a similar reason."
I think that's actually like
Especially with the
really
whole line
good.
that she came here because she wanted to find, wanted to live it out with them or wants
Yeah.
to
Yeah, that's the
explore the
thing with like
idea.
it's the thing with like twists that I do like is like they're subtle enough that if you really read into them, like Crimson, you can kind of see through it on your first watch through or whatever. But if you don't and you just kind of get the twist, and then when you were watching it, you notice it, and it's like, oh, that is cool. They were subtle enough with it where it wasn't like Crimson probably was like, oh, it was so obvious. It was like, wait, it was hitting you over the head, maybe, but
Like,
it's
Well,
for
I
me,
I feel like I need to see it again to see the Ryan angle because that, like I said, that
no,
totally went over my head until
I
they acknowledged it was a thing.
the
So
only
for
thing that made the Ryan thing for me is that I was like, it made because I questioned like, wait, didn't they say his name before? So why was her saying his name like the thing that gave it away? That's the only thing that resonated with me. I was like, oh well, why does? But yeah, I don't know.
I saw it in
yeah,
her body language. Anytime she's around like Sarge or Cooper or anything, she seems a bit relaxed. But if she's in a room with Ryan, she looks tense.
Yeah,
yeah, it's very contextual is not the word, but it feels like Megan's twist or whatever is very contextualized, and that's what a lot of writers, and when they try to write twists into their stories and films, they forget that they have to lay all the groundwork in there, and because here's the thing: subverting your expectations is typically a bad thing, thanks to Ryan Johnson, but it's one of those things where if you're
I
going to incorporate a twist, you have to have the groundwork laid in there, so that way it recontextualizes everything before. So for me, when the reveal is that Megan is a werewolf, that just recontextualized all the scenes that were prior, which is why I still think it's still a relevant twist. Even if it was see through for Crimson, I think there's a lot of work that went into that in order to muddy the waters, so to speak. You see the connection between her and Ryan for the most part before you see her connection to the werewolves.
mean, I can disagree with you, but I'm getting pretty sick and tired of all this Ryan Johnson hate. Okay, okay, okay.
Never stop. Can't stop, won't stop.
No, it's
um,
all in good jest.
Something I got a
It's all in
question
good
I
on.
jest.
know. I know, mate. It's okay.
The part when they're
Springs, you
inside the house and I think Spoon's the one who's like eating food and he's like, this might be pork or something, and then Cooper's going over like
I yes. Thank you for
ammunition
bringing
of
this
like
up.
things. What the heck is he playing with? I couldn't tell if it was like an Easter egg or some kind of like
Some
toy.
knickknack.
I think
It's
it's an
in
egg
3
timer, isn't it?
shots, and he's just spinning it on the table.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so you know how they have the letter opener that's made of silver at the very beginning that doesn't come back to the very end?
Yeah.
Well, this is so you think, "Hey, this is gonna come back," but it doesn't. It doesn't have any.
Actually,
You can
I know the reason why that's
oh,
there.
why is it
And
there?
Sprinks, there's a shot that happens a little either after, I think it's either after that or before that, where Cooper's sitting at a table and you see his hand shaking.
Oh, it's something to fidget with.
Yeah, it's legitimately something to fidget with to hide that PTSD kind of fidgeting, hand shaky thing. Because his hand was
Oh,
shaking at a point where he was sitting at the table, which I thought was an amazing detail. That without the fidgeting thing, he looks more unnerved.
Okay.
yeah.
Because I'm
It's
like,
just
there's
like
got to
the
be a
classic,
purpose to it for a reason for it to be
yeah.
in 3 shots.
The
It's the classic thinking of like what is it? Chekhov's gun or whatever. That if you have something featured, it has to be fired later on or whatever. So like if you focus on anything, it has to be useful to the
yeah,
plot at some point.
for me, that is all related to Cooper's character. Cooper is really hiding the fact that he's terrified and he's scared because he's now the one in charge, thanks to Sarge being under.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good read in. I like it. I like that interpretation.
Acceptable read-in.
Yeah, okay. You know what? You get a Scooby snack for that, writer.
Yay! Now I just have to go watch the rest of the shows.
Yeah.
Retro.
Uh-oh.
Ruggy.
Something I thought
Uh,
also, I just felt so stupid to me, and I think it's just a problem with the lighting, actually. When they exit the house to check on the car and they use a flare because they can't see. There was no need for a flare to be used.
Oh, okay.
Um,
I will agree that the moonlight in air quotes is quite bright in this, but we can rationalize that it is dark out, so I'm fine with them using a flare because
Okay,
to us
so
it is a bit bright, but to them it's still
it's
pitch
nighttime
black
and dark.
out.
Okay, so it's to be played off. It's nighttime dark. Need the flare to see, but in pickup,
They just went a
the
little high on
the
the lighting,
lighting
I think.
is yeah.
yeah, for them it's supposed to be pitch black. There's no power out there outside the house. There's no
Gotcha.
lights.
Lighting
So
issue, not
wouldn't they have a
world issue.
flashlight?
I don't think so.
That would be
They never show a
wouldn't
flashlight.
they? I know, but well, no, I'm just saying like standard like
Oh,
kit.
would
Wouldn't
they
they have
have
like a
one?
flash?
Probably.
Yeah,
I
they
also thought
yeah.
did.
they'd have a fire starter and not a box of matches.
I think they did have flashlights and
And
stuff, but
they
they used
left it or
them in
something.
the house for their fighting. I don't think they
Yeah, yeah,
used them
yeah.
outside though.
I don't think there was
Well, that's what I was
flashlights on
saying.
the
Like I was like,
underbarrel
because
of
I feel like
their uh,
On the
uh,
guns.
Well, the
their
yeah,
reason
blank
the reason
guns.
that the reason that the flashlights aren't as good is because the flashlights are direct beam, while
yeah,
a flare is a more area of effect, so you get a wider range in that particular light
yeah.
space.
I was just thinking like that makes more noise than like a flashlight clicking on or whatever. So if they want it to be somewhat,
I mean, if they're
I
already
don't know.
Him,
watching the
him also
house,
Yeah,
yelling,
I mean, at that point, it
"Come
doesn't
at
matter.
me!
Yeah,
Come
yeah. I
at
don't
me!"
know. Yeah, at that like
they should have
there's a
reshot
reason
that
for
a
it.
little bit.
Yeah, yeah, you know. But wanted to okay, that makes me think of something else I want to touch on. Ryan's transformation.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm not, I have no problem with him. Like, I mean, I have a little bit of problem with the whole aspect of like the hulking out scenario of it, but I'm not, we kind of just don't have an established set of lore to work with, so I can't say it's bad or good or whatever. It's just it is what it is. They set it up with like let me see your scratch, and it's like almost all it's pretty much like all healed and like all this stuff, and they
Yeah,
really never it never sinks in for anything else, and I don't know. That's like one thing where I'm like I understand what they're doing and I understand the point of it, but it's a weird thing to like bring up and then just have it be not talked about until it's far too late. I don't know. I don't know if
um,
I'm on my
there's
own with that.
yeah, that would have been one of the more learning issues to why I found the half hour not as strong as the first hour. Is that it felt like they kept finding. It felt like the plot kept interrupting the characters because I felt like that's something they would have addressed. The fact that Ryan is they're not asking Ryan questions. That Ryan's like they're not interrogating him. They're not questioning
Well, yeah,
him.
that's like the weird thing. It's like
And then they
there's like
obviously
all these.
when the
Yeah,
wound
sorry to
thing comes
interrupt.
up, they do the smart thing of tying him up, right?
Yeah.
But
Um.
they don't really go into that. They don't talk about it. It just kind of because then I feel like the plot interrupted them again. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Because there's in pretty much the whole movie, like once they quote unquote like rescue Ryan and everything and get him there, there's probably two scenes of I'm gonna put in quotes questioning, and they always just end with Ryan just being like, "I rank over you. I'm not gonna say anything," and that's it. Like there's never really any answers, and he's it just feels very there's there are weird beats in the movie is what I'm trying to get at here. That's like I it doesn't feel like, okay, if you're not gonna, don't set it up if the point of it is there's not gonna be any answers. You know what I mean?
The
Like
first
I'm
like
fine with it happening. I'm fine with it like the first time, but the second time and it's still kind of like nothing. It's like, okay, why are we doing this twice then? If you don't want to answer the questions, don't answer the questions. Let's not have like two scenes of it.
yeah, like I said, it's one of those things where I understand they're just holding off on the mystery a little bit longer,
Yeah.
and the plot is interrupting the characters, and that can happen. I'm not against the idea. It just kind of felt like it was getting a little too much. Like they were talking around the problem rather than trying to figure out the problem.
They're like, hey, you kind of know where we're at in this werewolf story, but where are we at in this soldier story? Like what it's yeah, it is this kind of weird little thing where I'm like, it, I feel like he'd have to answer for a lot more, and he never really does. I mean, really, Megan spills more beans than he does, and she's barely involved,
I thought you
and
were going to talk
they seem
about
to.
Ryan's
Yeah.
transformation itself. Is what
No, well,
I
no,
was
well, that's what it was, but then it kind of like it grew into
spiraled
like
off.
I remember that like they like interrogated him in quotes like twice, and both times they gave up super easily. That didn't seem like I feel like he's in like prime position to just like answer whatever he wants for them or whatever. It's granted he probably knows more than they do, and is like, okay, well, you have to wait this out for my transformation, and I'm gonna fuck you guys up for whatever reason.
Yeah, any thoughts
But
on anyone else?
Did
no,
did we see Ryan's injury? I don't remember.
We
we
do
did,
in the very
yeah.
we do see it when they're patching him up, and then we see it when
Okay.
they realize that he's mostly healed. That's the one of the reveals that he's probably turning.
All right. Yeah, I mean, Ryan definitely knew he was going to turn into a werewolf because the whole thing of him being wounded, he's like, I have to get out of here because his mission is to hand over a werewolf, and he knows he's going to turn into one. But he obviously gives up once he sees how bad the team is at the house, uh,
Hmm.
Yeah.
and it's just antagonistic at that point. Well, he's antagonistic the whole time, but
Yeah, he's a
he's not
world class
helpful.
dick. Yeah,
Yeah.
at no point has he really done anything to help them at all.
No, he sits in a chair by the fireplace.
But he does get thrown up on, so I guess it kind of evens out.
Yeah.
He was gonna shoot a dog again.
Yeah. Okay, if there's a bad soldier in this whole movie, it's probably Terry. Terry is a bad soldier.
Is that all you
Um,
got? Breaks the window.
No, he calls. Yeah, he says the p word, and then he gets
yeah.
attacked,
Then he gets ripped out of the window. Yeah.
which is funny, very
He
funny, and
turned his back to the enemy. Lesson number one: you lost, kid.
Well,
yeah.
and calling them out as a victory.
Yeah.
That's
He
not
was
good
he
on
was
you, dude.
inviting the returning fire.
Yeah.
He should have taken that class with Dumbledore. He would have learned more.
I find it a slight issue that the
Uh,
werewolves wrecked the car so quietly, or that no
Yeah,
one caught
that's
it
yeah.
or heard anything.
Um, I think
I read that.
you mean the Jeep when they pull it up,
Yeah.
or do you mean the big
No, no, no.
car?
Like
No,
the
no,
first,
no.
yeah, the
When
first
When
one.
they
You
it's
see
go
this
completely
like,
like
scrapped.
yeah, when he
yeah.
takes the flare to go
Oh,
investigate.
yeah, that one is the problem. Yeah, I agree with that. I think the Jeep was clever. They just went and severed the fuel line and disabled things. Like they didn't need to wreck it in order to do it to that car. Just
No,
to
but
prove the
it's a
point.
cool like picture. So
Yeah.
Also, they say, I should have written it down. There's a line when they say about the Jeep, there's a problem. They're like, the what was it? The
Something with a
one of the
hose
band
and
is
the belt.
gone. Yeah, the belt's gone, stuff like that. And then they say it's leaking petrol. And then later in the film, when they're underneath the Jeep, it's still leaking petrol. I don't know if the tank's big enough to
Oh
be
no,
leaking that much over the time it's been.
yeah, my guess for that scene when they were going out to like double check it, I assumed that the werewolves just widened the hole, so they're just emptying it all out, like in order to keep them trapped there. At least that was my assumption.
Yeah, but it was
But if it
still
was,
leaking. When they're like doing the plan to drive into the barn, it's still leaking.
oh, if they're leaking petrol into the barn when they're driving it to the barn, not away from the barn.
Hang on. Never mind. Never mind. I'm confused. Never mind.
Yeah.
I got
Okay.
confused on two separate cars.
Okay, yeah, because
Yeah,
if
that's the other. Yeah.
when they're driving to the barn, that's intentional
Yeah,
because
they
they
cut that
did
themselves.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah. No, so,
I will go
I,
Yeah,
I,
to
I, I
if
okay.
something.
Oh, Spike's gonna bring up
Spring,
something.
Okay.
Springs needs to bring up something. Come on.
When they're, I guess, holding the door back and Sarge is at the bottom of the stairs, and Sam comes over and starts tugging on Sarge, I thought it was his intestines that were being
I
tugged
did
at.
too.
And I thought
Oh,
this is brain dead level humor.
Yeah.
And then I
I'm very
realized
happy it wasn't in the
yeah, I
intestines.
realized it was his bandages.
Bloody bandages.
I'm very happy it wasn't in the intestines because that would have crossed the line for me.
Yeah.
That's the moment that would have gone too far. Anything else though, shooting a
Because
dog, we're totally
because then
fine
we are
with.
going to brain dead levels, and I'm like, well, this movie was treated so seriously for a while. Why would it do that?
Well, then again, you see Sarge get his gut cut open with his intestines hanging out, and it's like, oh, just hold those in. You'll be
Oh,
fine.
they're not gonna fit.
Sarge is a champ. He
He is a champ. He's a Chad.
I also don't.
I've leveled it.
he,
I've
he didn't
leveled.
he didn't black out from shock
No,
or
I
anything.
don't
He
understand
was
why they don't tell him
cognizant
to
and had to get
bite
punched.
down on something.
I labeled it down as either 50-50. This is either plot armor or the Sarge is just fucking badass. I'm willing to believe
Hey,
either at this point because
yeah,
Sarge kind of
both
earns the
things.
badass badge at
High
the end.
constitution.
Yeah,
Both things can be true.
Right,
Okay.
I think.
yeah. It took 2 punches to knock him out, not 1.
Yeah, those are fake.
Um.
Those are some fake punches.
They were pretty.
Oh yeah, they're pretty fake. Still hilarious.
So the sound effect, good. I like the sound effect. Very meaty. Yeah, no, the whole surgery scene. Yeah, that was. They should have tied him up and Yeah, it was really sloppy. I was a little miffed by that, but not overly
Yeah.
so.
They're not.
He's got
None
a
of them,
massive wound. Get the super glue.
yeah, to be fair, neither of them are combat medics. But
Yeah,
well,
that's true.
super glue. It was cool. They actually gave you the real history of super glue that
Yeah.
most people don't know.
Yeah.
That was nice.
Don't
The
you
wound
find it
just
weird
seemed
that
too big for that to work.
Yeah,
Oh
Did they
yeah,
that's
sew
also
him?
true.
I didn't see any sewing. Did they? Because I could see them sewing and then gluing up the wound. That would make sense. But
yeah, I don't
just
think
using
anyone
glue,
was,
I don't think that would work.
I don't think any of them are combat medics. So
No. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, none of them were because it's supposed to be a training exercise, so they probably don't have like any medical person on site
you know what's
because they're firing blanks.
yeah.
No, but I like the line of like, don't you ever wonder why super glue sticks to your fingers better than anything else or whatever? Like, oh, I never thought about it like that.
Yeah. One of the it was cool. It was a cool thing. I didn't realize it was set up. But one of the things I liked is the cold outside. You can always see someone's breath when they exhale outside, and it's set up for the werewolf breath in the car.
Mm-hmm. That was very cool.
That
I like
was
that
It's
scene.
right
for me. That was
behind
just
me.
yeah. When
You're
you
right
see
behind me, aren't you?
the exhale of the werewolf breath behind him, I thought for me that was one of a nice horror shot.
That was a
That's
good
like
touch.
yeah, there's like isn't there like an alien shot like that or something? I mean, not with the breath, but like that it's like dripping.
Yeah, the alien peeks
Yeah,
over
Yeah.
the shoulder.
yeah, I love those. I love those over the shoulder shots with the big monster. Those are
Yeah,
cool.
when dog drool goes on Ron's
Mhm.
shoulder.
Yeah,
Look up and
that's
see
another great
Cerberus.
monster one.
Fluffy. I have a question.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead,
You
Censor.
go. You go.
No,
No. I've had a lot of points.
an
You go.
impasse.
Crimson
Okay.
go.
I learned that there's a line they were talking about like werewolves and finding out, and then they said, or when Megan's talking about lycanthropes, and says eyebrows that meet in the middle. Are unibrows a werewolf thing?
Mostly yes, but
I'm like, I don't think I've ever heard
it's
that.
very it's a fairly common trope among werewolves, but it's not a, you know, it's not the one people care about, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
This
kind
is
of the
this
lamer
I've
one.
dark
never heard
age
about it
paranoia.
either.
Yeah, roughly. Yeah.
So something I have is when we covered It's a Wonderful Life, a problem. I remember Sinister and Ryder having, I don't remember what Spriggs' thoughts on it, was George Bailey taking too long to realize things. Do we feel
Yeah.
like the soldiers took too long here?
Well, there's a moment like early on
To
where they're like,
realize?
What is it? Some sort of man wolf or whatever?" And then they like realize what a werewolf is. I've talked about that a couple times. Where one of I probably not on the podcast itself, but I'm not really a big fan of like zombie stuff where they don't know what a zombie is. It kind of irritates me a lot.
Well, it doesn't
Uh,
play out like they don't know what a werewolf is. Like they've heard of it
No,
before.
no, no, no. I know. I was saying like they know what a werewolf is, but I'm saying like when, in the first part they do kind of like not know what a werewolf is, or they say it like they don't know
Yeah.
what a werewolf is,
I
but
mean,
then
they
they
see
do
it.
say
They're
like
shooting
werewolf.
at it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, you know, what are we supposed to do with like a werewolf or whatever, you know? So that's I'm fine with that. But yeah, there is this like weird, and it's part of like the thing I brought up earlier with like the rules of the werewolves and everything, where other than Silver, they really don't like bring up any weaknesses for them or anything. And even that, they're kind of like, well, that's just folktale, so we don't even know if that's true or not.
Then again, Megan's the one who said that.
Well, yeah, she
So
did
she
say
could be
that,
like trying to lean them away from it.
but they did. But then they are looking through like the silverware and everything, and they don't find any silver. You know, it's all just like fake or whatever. So she's like, no self-respecting werewolf would have silver in their house or something, which I guess should have been another clue, but
Which explains
no.
why did
So,
they keep that silver dagger from the beginning then?
well, I
I
don't think
assumed it
they.
was, I
They
assumed it was
probably
a
didn't know it was
trophy.
there.
It's
Yeah.
also That's also probably true. They didn't know it was
It
there.
probably like the guy probably put it in his pocket or whatever, even though it looked like he was trying to grab it to stab them or something, which who knows? It's a
Um,
Deus Ex Machina, okay?
well, yeah, they were shooting werewolves in the woods. Maybe they couldn't see them, but they were doing that. And then one jumps on the car, and then they can clearly see the werewolf punching its arm through the roof. They enter the house, and Megan explains what werewolves are and blah 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 blah. And Cooper's like, "You really believe in that?" I'm like, "You just fought one." And then later, I don't remember which other soldier, it was some other one.
Yeah.
Also
Probably
talked to
Terry.
Megan, also saying, do you actually believe in that stuff?" And I'm like, you guys have been fighting them. It's not a question of whether it's real at this point.
That's your George Bailey take connection.
Like, yeah,
In terms of
they
how long it took to believe, in this, I they're
well,
actively
because
fighting them.
well, yeah, here's the thing, like, for this, they don't need to not believe in them for it to keep going. They can believe in it and everything still happens the exact same way. It is like this weird thing of them being like, "Oh yeah, I don't know what you really believe in that stupid." It's not like it makes them less effective. Either way. So they could believe in it, and it would still play well, and they would not be like stupid
They're far too
or it.
engaged and interacted with the werewolves to be this dumb.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. There's a problem. I was thinking about it. I think the point at which where they should have believed is when they got to the house, or at least have started suspecting them. They would have been more open to the idea, and then, like, she starts describing what a werewolf is, and he's like, "No, one of them could chime in. Oh no, I think she's got a point because there was a part where the light hit it just right. I think I just saw like a furred like wolf head on a human body or something to that effect. So I think there's definitely, I think you could play around with them not knowing with it up until they get to the house.
I think here's the thing. Here's a
And
like
the whole car thing,
quick,
they see
yeah,
it.
a quick like
Exactly,
15
but well,
second.
I mean, like the car thing with the arm going through, they can see that it's inhuman, right? They
Yeah.
don't. I don't think they physically see it though.
They
Yeah.
they
We
show where
see
you can
it.
see the snout through the window.
Yeah, we
They see
see it.
the snout and the arm.
Yeah. Do they
I
see that?
was I don't
Well,
know,
three of
Yeah.
them would
but
if they're
here's the thing.
looking
I'm gonna
that direction.
quick like 15-second little thing or whatever. Sarge is like the one who is agrees with her or whatever. And I'm sure all the soldiers would be like, yeah, if Sarge got
Yeah,
attacked by one and he's agreeing with her, that's
yeah.
proof enough right there.
Sarge did
Sarge would
look
be
at it while it slashed him.
Yeah.
Sarge
So
would be one of the first to agree. Yeah. So
yeah,
anyway,
and
I agree that it's a problem, Crimson.
mhm.
They are a little slow on the uptake. There's an element of denial they can play around with, but even if they're playing with denial, they can't deny that at least it's something similar.
Yeah.
no, there's a certain cutoff where it just doesn't make any sense anymore to be denying it, and it normally I would say that, oh well, that just like is the dumb survivor horror thing or whatever. But in this, if they believed in it, it wouldn't really change anything versus them not believing in it. Everything would still happen exactly the same.
I think
So it is. Yeah.
yeah, I think this one was more subtle for me to text. I don't think I realized until you pointed out Crimson that it was a problem because the thing with George Bailey being an issue, or that the reason I found that as an issue is because he's a little too long on the uptake, and if he realized it, the rest of the story doesn't happen pretty much. So that one's kind of
True.
integral in him not noticing. Whereas here, they could know the story still plays out the same, only some of the dialogue changes. So it's not really. So the reason I think I guess I missed that as a problem is just because it just went by.
Yeah. I mean, either way, yeah, like I said, either way, the whole thing still plays off. But in the situation where they're disbelieving it, they don't. They seem, necessarily stupid or slow on it.
Yeah, like they can argue. They can definitely argue about it
Yeah,
because
I'm fine
obviously some of
arguing.
them had a
Yeah.
obviously some of them have had a clearer view of them than others and stuff like that. So you could still play around with it. But I think Sarge would have been the first one to be on the. Yeah, it's probably true. Then I wouldn't be surprised if it's true, kind of thing. I think Cooper could be in denial of it the longest if they play around with it because I don't think Cooper gets a good look at one. Outside of the excuse of the car is what you're
Yeah.
saying. So like
Well, yeah,
he could just
they all see
write
the arm.
yeah he could write that off as just someone out there being really crazy up until a certain point, but
Freaking crazy.
yeah
Yeah, and then one of the guys is like, I don't think it's werewolf. I think it's animagus. And then everyone's like, what the heck's an animagus?
Yeah, that'd take a turn. I thought it was. I don't think we touched on it. I thought it was cool seeing the different uses of night vision. Of green was, night vision used for the
the
soldiers, and then
soldiers.
the black and white was for the werewolves.
Yeah, I am glad that they distinguished between the two. It did get a little in the scenes where it was a little kind of too much like cutting between. It got a little bit kind of crazy, but uh, it was good. It was a good distinguishing part of it.
Anyone find weird the part where I don't know what soldier it was because to me, unfortunately, Terry, Joe, and Spoon all kind of look the same. One of them was using a shotgun, and a werewolf took it and took it out the window, and then the werewolf fires
That
a
was Terry.
shotgun.
Was that Terry? No, that was.
That
I
was
don't think.
Terry.
No, that was Joe. I think that was Joe.
I'm pretty sure it was
I just
Terry.
found it funny the werewolf fired a shotgun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's something
that's
you usually see. Well,
yeah,
we didn't actually see it. We just know it
But we
happened.
could presume
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
And he
we know
threw it.
we know what happened.
The
We just didn't see it.
silly thing is that he threw it at him. Then
They
should have
he
kept
chucked
it.
it back in the house.
Shotgun werewolf. The next movie in the franchise.
I'd like to touch
shotgun
on.
werewolf hunting down aliens.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'd like to touch on my favorite shot of the movie. I liked, which is timestamp 57 minutes. It's when Spoon is at the stairs and it's like dead silent, and he's at the stairs and he's looking at both doors, the back door and the front door, and one like the
Cool.
werewolf is trying to open the door handle, and he's checking the back door, and then he hears and he turns around and looks in front of him, and when he does, you can see the blurred image of the window behind him, and the werewolf through the window walks away.
Yeah, that's good.
It's a good shot.
Like I said earlier, they have some good shots with the werewolves. I think.
Yeah. I think I do have like a slight problem with that scene. Is that
All
would be
right.
an almost impossible. Well, no, like just like from a tactical perspective, that would be an impossible area to cover. you would not really because there's
Now,
two
with their
entrances.
numbers dwindling, this house is less and less
I mean,
likely to
yeah,
be
I mean, this whole
killed.
house is impossible. Yeah, you wouldn't. There's too many entrances and
Lots
everything.
of
If they had a full
windows.
squad at the start, then they could probably do it. But yeah,
Yeah. So I'm like, I don't know if like,
I think he's there
okay,
because there's the staircases there to go to Sarge.
yeah, I'm sure that's yeah. That was just the thing that was like annoying me just a little bit. I still like the scene. It's very tense and everything, and I think it's really well done. It was just like I don't think that would be the spot where you would post somebody. Also, it was Joe, by the way, with the shotgun. I was
Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
I think Terry had it at some other point, but Joe had it in the scene where he got shot by a shotgun. Shotgun werewolf.
Another
Uh,
timestamp I have is I think Sam, the dog, is the most surprised dog I have ever seen, like a live action dog in any film.
Because
At
that's white
timestamp,
eyes.
yeah, at 1 hour, 1 minute and 10 seconds, Sam is so just wide eyed, staring, and looks like surprised or shocked.
Not barking, and then the
No,
werewolf steps like 1 foot, and then it starts barking. I didn't
maybe.
really care for Sam's presence in the film. I thought it would have a bigger presence, but it was pretty much only there just for the ending part with Ryan.
Yeah,
He didn't do anything throughout the film.
yeah.
Uh,
Like I said, it was kind of weird they owned a dog.
it's understandable that werewolves would be dog people and not cat people.
Well, yeah, it's but it's like I don't thinking like Goofy and Pluto. That's a kind of a weird dynamic, isn't
I mean,
It's
it's
true.
a.
it?
I mean, presumably it's a to be clear. I think it's a shepherding dog.
Yeah.
But looking at the breed of it, so I think they might they might have a small farm out here, which would make sense. I don't think they would make regular trips to town.
Makes sense for the barn.
Yeah. So I think that the dog is more of a necessity because they're not werewolves all the time.
Are you saying they're only werewolves
Yeah,
by night?
Huh. You're funny.
That
yeah.
was
I didn't
the
have a
most
problem with
obvious
them
joke I
having a
could make,
dog.
but thank you.
I
You
just
just
wish
wanted
that
them
I
to
didn't have
have
a
if
their
there
problem with
was a
it.
presence.
dog, that it had a presence, other than
I
it
didn't.
lingers in the background sometimes, and that's
Yeah,
it.
just want to clarify. I did not have a problem with the dog itself. I just thought it was a very weird dynamic to have if you're a werewolf owning a dog.
It wasn't actively attacking anything, or I mean, even the barking was very limited. It was very sparse with what it was doing.
Mm.
Yeah,
But you know,
I thought because the dog was owned by the werewolves that like that's the reason why it was barking at
yeah,
them.
that it was trying to alert them or something. Yeah,
Yeah, which I thought was, there's not really a lot. There's not really a lot to play around with that, I suppose. But the
Well,
yeah,
you
I don't
think
know
it
what I.
wouldn't bark at him because it knows its family, right?
No,
The
it's
werewolves
barked at
are
them
the
because
family members.
well, I mean they would smell different, obviously, at least to a degree. I
I don't
don't
know.
like I said, I don't know how I would ground the dog into the story more.
The only one it attacks is Ryan, the one that isn't a member of the family. Mm,
mm,
mm.
It's used to their
mm,
scent.
Maybe.
maybe. And
We
it
don't
doesn't try
really
to attack it,
we
so
don't really get much with regards to Sam. Like I said, I would like to justify his place in the story, but I don't know if you could completely remove him since he's integral to the ending.
yeah. But you could make him, I think, a little bit more necessary to the
Yeah,
plot, though.
you could definitely make him more necessary.
I think Sam's stronger in this film than the Silver Dagger right
Like, the silver dagger is more important than the dog. It doesn't have much of a presence because it's just there in the beginning and the end. But you needed the dagger to win. You don't need the dog to win. You didn't have to have Cooper essentially lose the fight. He could have picked up the knife and stabbed him during the fight. You didn't need him to be rescued by a dog.
I'm kind of rewatching some of the scenes right now. What a lot of things that happens during action scene is Megan is hugging Sam and just kind of
Mhm.
comforting him,
Yeah.
which is a nice detail. I actually quite like that.
Okay.
Doesn't I don't know if that changes their minds because it doesn't really change I guess my opinion on that. But I just think it's a cool detail.
You know, I'm
They,
into
they do acknowledge that Sam is in the place
Yeah,
by
it. He
having
does
Megan attend to the
exist.
dog.
yeah.
He
Yeah,
takes up space.
they don't forget that he's there.
Yeah. Now,
Which is nice, at least. You know, that he's not like it's a continuity thing that they're keeping him there for most of it.
Yeah,
You're gonna say Spriggs?
yeah, earlier there was I touched on thinking that the dogs were werewolves, possibly, and not the werewolves were human.
hmm
There's a cut to when Spoon jumps out the window to give like a distraction when they um, jump out opposite windows, and it cuts to Ryan looking at Sam before going back to the situation at hand. So
Okay. What do you,
before, with my initial thought of the dogs as the werewolves, I thought that was like just a good like throwing like Ryan still has that hatred to dogs, or could be connected to the werewolves, or he knows more about this mission because they're going in search for the werewolf to capture. Is their mission? So I thought that worked off. Knowing now that Sam had nothing to do and that was just a shot to show Ryan still hating like shooting dogs, it's weird to have in the film.
hmm,
Oh, I see what you're saying. Um,
guess
It
I can't
doesn't
really
really
picture the
serve
scene.
a purpose anymore with my initial thought of what it could have been.
So they're doing the split up out the windows, and then they just cut to
Ryan
Ryan looking
looking
at the
at
dog.
Sam, and then it cuts back.
I guess that's a little weird, but I need to see it again.
I mean, you could interpret it as just that Ryan knows that the dog knows the other werewolves and stuff like that.
Could be
You could have
true.
just
He knows the dog
you
isn't
could
barking.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I had a question, I guess.
Uh,
Um, not when I speak about Megan's plan, I don't mean like the plan with like the car and everything. Um, what was her actual plan like for them getting her out or something? I didn't really understand that part at all.
her
I
her
was really
big reveal. I had to
yeah.
watch that twice because I was a little confused.
From my understanding is that she thought they were good enough to actually win and defeat her family.
Okay,
That
but
wouldn't help her though. Is the
yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know
I
what her
know.
goal is.
yeah,
She's
because when because I
you
felt
first.
like it was like okay, like getting rid of the family would get her away from the family or whatever. But then by her intentionally sabotaging the plan that would do that, that doesn't really make sense. Um, so then like so she didn't because that would technically have eliminated them, and that's kind of what she was like. I thought you guys would be better or whatever, and like yeah, but then you blew the plan. So how could we have foreseen it or whatever? Yeah, so I didn't really understand what her reasoning was for trying to help them, I guess, versus, with the whole and then with the reveal at the end, I was very confused by her presence overall.
Yeah, because I think she brought up how I thought you guys would be able to get us out of here. So it sounds like her objective is to leave this area. In which case, why can't she do that when she's not a werewolf? So I don't know. It doesn't really make sense to me.
Yeah, it's weird. I agree. Especially since she has a car and she can clearly drive a
Yeah,
good distance.
Yeah,
yeah, that was my thing of it. Yeah, I was like, I
Maybe
don't
her plan was to leave that night, but she just happened to hear gunfire and just went, "Oh shit, someone's getting murdered." Defied again.
But she
murderified.
would
Yeah,
know it's that night of the month.
Well, yeah, that's why she's choosing to leave because she found a way to temporarily suppress it or
But
whatever,
why?
and so
No,
everyone's lost their minds and can't prevent her from
yeah, but why
leaving.
would she stop and pick them up if she
yeah,
knows that her family's
Because she
hunting?
knows they're gonna get slaughtered if she doesn't.
she
But
has
is
a
that
That's
car
not the
kind of how it
problem.
purpose?
is played off. What?
Is Megan not wanting them to get slaughtered?
The impression is at first is no.
Not at the beginning. That's not what her
The
explanation was.
idea
She wanted them to help her get out
Yeah,
for some
yeah,
reason.
the twist at the end is that she's decided to turn, you
yeah.
know,
She's like,
it
I'm helping
decided
them now or whatever.
decided to
Yeah,
pull a Benedict Arnold because she realized that their situation's hopeless and they can't get her out.
nice, nice
Oh,
history
okay.
reference there.
Yeah, I appreciate. Yeah, I figured Springs obviously would appreciate the history reference.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, you know. But, yeah,
Um,
no, I don't understand. Yeah, I was just, like, very confused by it because it kinda I mean, I'm not really so much against her, siding with the werewolves and everything if there's a reason for it, but I didn't understand the reason why she wouldn't have done it sooner because her whatever her goal was didn't really make sense or was explained.
yeah.
Like, all we got was just, like, I'm a werewolf and I'm against you guys now, and that was kind of it.
Yeah,
And it's
well
like,
well, like I said,
yeah.
as she explains, is that she finds their situation hopeless now, which is why she's willing to turn table
But
again.
okay, but yeah, that's the thing. Like, she created the changeover because she wouldn't kill the werewolf or what, like that because essentially what she says is that plan would have worked if she hadn't have, you know,
Got the family out of the barn or the
yeah.
shed or whatever.
So that's the thing. That's why I'm like
Oh, I
that's
see what you're saying.
yeah, that's because I'm fine if she like was like against the odds or whatever, and she decided I got to cut my losses and just turn these guys in. But yeah, she basically created the no odds. So that's what was confusing me.
That's true.
Yeah, that would be the most confusing aspect of her plan then.
Hmm.
When of why she would create the no win scenario when obviously her goal at first would have been to escape.
Yeah,
Or maybe she just thought that the explosion wouldn't have been enough to capture them all in the barn.
yeah. I don't. Yeah, like there's. I'm sure there's a couple of reasons or there's an explanation for it, but it was yeah for me it was just very.
It it definitely needed to be conveyed more.
Hmm.
I think Megan might be the not the weakest character, the strangest character because she does things that don't really line up and make sense most of the time.
I feel
Even
like
with
she's kind
the
of a. I feel like she's kind of like a have your cake and eat it too character where they're trying like they're doing like two things, on opposite ends of like they're kind of establishing both an antagonist and a protagonist or kind of thing or a helper and the opposite end of turning them in or whatever. And it kind of really doesn't work because it kind of needs to be one or the other by the end of it, and for it to but they kind of just go like all in for it, I think, is my problem with it. I don't know if that's the same for everyone.
I think it's you can have a character that is playing both sides of a
Yeah,
field,
yeah,
but
no, yeah, you can
the
totally
way
have it.
she
Yeah,
approaches it doesn't make sense to her own interest of what we
yeah.
can understand her interest to be.
yeah.
Well, because we
So
don't know what her interests are really.
precisely. So
Yeah,
I think they just botched it by not having an actual goal for her.
Yeah. If the goal was to escape, they needed to make that more explicit and as to explain why that she, came back for them anyhow and stuff like that.
yeah.
Like
I think they kind
that
of
stuff would have been
yeah,
explicit. Like if the plan was for her to leave that night, and the fact that she heard gunfire is what drew her attention to get them in the first place, which stopped her original plan. That could work in the sense that now she's on plan B because she doesn't know what to do anymore. That sort of thing. That in of itself could plug some of the holes with Megan. It doesn't
yeah.
plug all of them because it
No,
still leaves her
You'd have to answer
motivations.
why she'd care.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, you'd have to answer her motivations still, but it's still something with regards to her. Because I think right now she lacks I guess, the consistency as to why she is playing or why she ended up being one to play both sides.
yeah. It like I agree with Crimson. You can have characters that play both sides and are like I mean freaking uh Indiana Jones. They had a character like that. The femme fatale character who played both sides, and saw how that turned out, by the
Oh,
way.
Elsa.
But yeah. So you can have it and have it be engaging and everything. But yeah, I think the problem with this one is that it really doesn't. We don't know what her goals are really. We kind of have a sense of what they were, but even the ones that we have a sense of, we don't really understand how she would have
they
gone
get
about it, or
contradicted.
yeah, they get contradicted. So and
The
it is a it,
decision.
it yeah.
Sorry,
Uh,
you
It
finish.
is no, yeah, I was like, it is that's like the one thing where I'm like, I think maybe the third act or the not the third act, but like the final act was just like really hard for them to kind of figure out. I think they kind of knew where they wanted it to go, but they couldn't really figure out like how to make all of them line up. I don't know. this is kind of a strange thing for like a 6-year long kind of script rewriting, thing that this is kind of like a very big wrench.
Yeah, they had their twist, but they were reworking constantly their way to implement it. If that makes
Yeah,
sense.
like
There's
yeah,
a there's a critical decision point I think that's in the film where you see her looking at the barn. Because that's she's going to be the one to kind of suggest the plan to blow it all up with everything, with all of them inside. But there's a shot on her where she's looking conflicted, like she's about to make the choice to betray them and stuff like that. Which, I mean, I guess credit to the actress that she at least looks conflicted about the choice. I just wish there was more, uh, I don't know, script to chew on, I suppose, with regarding to that choice.
yeah, because I mean, I think it's oh, I don't want to say it's fine because it really bugs me, but
It's here's the way to phrase it. The concept
yeah,
is fine. In the
yeah,
idea, ultimately, she feels backed into a corner enough to eventually switch sides back to the werewolves because the situation is
yeah.
now just that desperate and hopeless. There is a good idea in that for
Yeah,
sure.
the betrayal I am fine with. I just want it to feel like I understand the reasoning behind it. Yeah. I think that's the I like the idea in concept. I think the execution here misses the mark by a pretty wide margin.
Springs, did you have
Pretty.
anything to add
I was gonna
to?
say big topic. Springs, what are your thoughts
Yeah,
on it?
Jeez. Again, I don't know how much to add.
Well, just your opinion. Do you
Yeah,
agree?
like
Disagree?
where do you land on the line here?
on the character Megan.
Um, not fleshed out enough. I'm thinking.
Mm,
Um, I it's seen as confusing, and her purpose of things, and I do believe the structure was trying to escape, stopped, thought they could help, didn't, turned, helped her family again, which could have consequences on her actions afterwards of finding out she was attempting to leave, which is why their both vehicles are now destroyed and it's on Megan, so the family won't like her. But I don't know if she's processing that thought process. Yeah, it's just it's kind of convoluted of her character, of her plans or her initial like shift and change and progress, and her
yeah,
history with Ryan and the development of those two characters uh, back and forth with each other.
I think that's kind of where we're all leaning on.
Yeah, that's kind of a little in the same space with that. We kind
Uh,
of talked over you, Crimson. I guess. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to add to your own point, or was just that
Well, I
you?
was I was going to open it up to Springs. Yeah,
okay, all right.
but
Yeah.
I can bring up something at the end here. I don't think it should have been in, but I crossed my mind anyways. I'll bring it up. Be interesting if Cooper, after the explosion, walks out, looks on the ground, and finds a patch of skin with a devil tattoo on it.
No, what was the sergeant's tattoo? He
Interesting.
got like some. No, he got a rat
Yeah,
on his arm. A desert
oh,
rat.
he had a rat. So
Yeah, he had a desert
his
rat.
rad tattoo then,
Yeah, that would have been
because
good.
That would have aided
his
with the
pal blew
comedy.
up and left. Just yeah, that's why I was like I wouldn't fit, but it'd be a interesting implementation
I
Oh,
like the idea in isolation, but yeah, it would have
because they both
probably.
blew up.
Yeah,
that
And
would be a huge continuity error. However, still, I appreciate the idea that would go into that because that would have been a nice, I guess, bow on top of the lesson that needed to be learned.
see, if that wasn't like the exact end, but then the Ryan fight happened, I think you could probably fit it in a little bit more. But yeah, contextually would have kind of ruined the tone a bit. But otherwise, yeah, I like the idea. You pitched it to me. I'm the boardroom, and I'm giving you the go ahead.
all right, when we remake this, we'll shove it in somehow.
Well, we're not gonna call it dog soldiers like DOG. It's gonna be
Soldier dogs.
DAWG. DAWG.
Flip it around.
Dow
The
soldiers.
Suicide Squad. It's a
Is there
Suicide
any
Squad.
reason they kept
The
Terry
Dog
alive?
Soldiers.
I have a question. Is there any reason they kept Terry alive in the barn?
None I
I
could
had
think
the
of.
same question, but you brought that up earlier of a trade.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
why my initial idea was that they were going to barter for the life of their dog because Sam could be considered a hostage.
There's
But they never
in
do anything with that because they just kind of glorify. They kind of just glory kill him when they go get the jeep.
Yeah, a thought that crossed my mind was because he's still alive but injured by them, he will change. So it's just like adding to their numbers. So that's why they're keeping him alive. But then as soon as they see another soldier there, they think they change their mind and see it's better to kill him there to show, I don't know, their strength or threaten it, ability towards the soldier in the car, which I think is Spoon.
You know what would have been interesting? The if they kept him alive to torture him for information, so they could
Yeah,
they could better understand the soldiers they were fighting. I think that would
yeah.
have been the reason to
Like
keep him alive, and
I
it would
think I
also
said
add
They
it.
don't have any
again to the
form.
intelligence.
They don't have any form
Yeah,
of communication.
Yeah, we don't really see that. I presumably the werewolves communicate with each other because they definitely strategize a few times, but
yeah,
there's no attempt to.
yeah. I mean, yeah, they have the same strategic input as what an actual like wolf pack would have, which I mean is still pretty good, but it's I mean it's animalistic at best.
Like if
I
they
mean,
were if
they turn
they
off the generator, so the lights are out. So
Yeah,
they cut
they have an
fuel lines.
they
understanding of
why
technologies. They're
Yeah,
not
they cut
completely
fuel lines. So
animals or computers.
there's clearly a level of intelligence with human related things because they, as you said, they sever fuel lines among other things and
they
stuff
break
like that.
the car. Yeah,
Yeah, so it's one
yeah.
of those things where I think that they could have kept him alive for information, but they don't
I'm
really play with the idea, I suppose.
yeah. This is way earlier in the movie, but
This is popcorn. Go ahead.
when they come into the house like first, and they do like the sweep and everything, which by the way I love that they did a full sweep of the whole place. um that's very good strategic usage. um they when they have like the food, or Terry eats the food. Do you think that was human? That wasn't pork,
Could be.
that was
Oh,
The
Long
line,
Island pork.
I
yeah, the line of not knowing, I think definitely
yeah,
fits into that.
they could be making
Oh,
people jerky downstairs.
that kind of
yeah,
reminds you. That kind of reminds you. There's that really creepy shot when Cooper enters the dining room and the table's just perfectly set.
yeah, very creepy.
Um, it
um
could be.
And
Uh,
yeah,
one of the lines I do like related to that is the soldier's like, when you're a soldier, you learn to eat anywhere, pretty much, or you eat
yeah,
when you can. I did like
yeah,
that.
that was good. But yeah, I like for the whole keeping Terry alive thing. I don't know. Like little my head canon thing or whatever was that living meat tastes better to them. I don't, versus dead meat. I don't think that's probably accurate, and it's just that's
Possible, but yeah,
not my favorite way to keep the scene in. But that's all we kind of got. I don't know why they would have kept him alive otherwise, because I mean, everybody else, they like there's like nothing left but some like entrails and like a bloody stain on the floor, and he's like it's been like an hour and he's just bleeding out of his couple of places and getting just eaten alive. So who knows?
Ryder, question for you because you probably know this better than I do. The yellow the yellow muzzle brakes they have on their training weapons to begin with, is that equivalent to orange tip barrels?
yes.
Yeah,
The
so they're
the
not
the
using.
yeah, it just made pretty much means they're not using live rounds, but
Okay.
it's also going to count the rounds you use. I think.
I,
I think
I
at
think
least the
the
modern ones do.
I think the military uses orange tips. That's primarily for
No, but
toys.
he's just saying like orange tips.
Yeah,
Is it
it's the
equivalent
military
to
an
version of orange
indicator of
chips.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, it is an indicator.
Yeah. The yellow things are going to show up more than the little painted orange tips when you're being observed by other people in a military exercise because
uh,
you don't want to accidentally live fire somebody on a military
which
exercise.
by the way, even if you do have orange tipped fake guns, you can still get arrested.
Yep, that's true.
Yes.
Whenever I used to play with a fake gun, I had a sign that I planted it in my garden saying it's a toy.
Yeah. So yeah, no,
This is a
I
social
do like
contract.
this is
Now that you've read the sign, you cannot arrest me.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's the same excuse as like I am playing on an emulator, but I have the game cartridge in my hand right now as I'm playing this, so it's totally legal.
Pretty much. I bought the
Yeah.
game. I'm allowed to play it where I want.
Yeah. screw you, Nintendo. You don't own anything.
It's a freedom thing. I respect
It's
it.
a freedom thing. Yeah, this is America.
A
Um,
funny
Well,
mechanic I saw that I guess could also go into the confusion of Megan is she uses a camera flash to like blind the werewolves to evade them, which isn't
Yeah.
necessarily a weapon of damage, but I don't know if it's a sign of her like telling the werewolves like get out of here or leave. I'm trying to work on
or just
communicate.
over familiarity. Yeah.
Yeah, something like because she gets them to come in the house so that she can communicate to them, and they're not hostile towards her. Like we touched on that. So, do they know like the reason of the flash or?
I mean,
Well, they used a flash grenade earlier. I don't know if anyone saw how effective that was because it was thrown outside the house. She obviously knows that they are night vision based, so a bright light would cause disorientation. So the practicality use of it, I think, is applicable. And at this point, when she's using the camera, she hasn't flipped sides yet, as far as we're aware.
yeah, as far as we're
This
aware,
is before the
that's a good.
explosion of the barn
Yeah.
and whatnot. So I think it all makes sense from what we can understand of Megan.
Okay.
Yeah, once you kind of start like poking at it, there's a lot of problems of like, why would they accept her again if they, it's
Oh,
a
they would.
whole other. That's There's a whole other like barrel of monkeys that are going to be unleashed if by questioning it, which is again problem. And I right now, as of right now, I don't really know. I mean, we kind of touched on a couple of things, but I don't know anything that would sort of 100% like clear it up. I think it is just something where it'd have to be just like
It's too
taken out.
fractured, I think.
Yeah, you'd have to like
It
kind
has
of
to be
take it
reworked.
out, rework it. Yeah, but I will say, bravo to the actor. She did a very good job, I think, for most of it. She had good body language and
Yeah.
played it off pretty well. Yeah, so kudos to her. But unfortunately, she was just not written into the story very well
No.
by
Speaking
the
about
end.
right into a story, um, before I don't know what it was we covered, but I brought up like what I thought was the worst line in the movie. I think it was Violent Night actually, and I
It
guess
was.
it's not what I don't know if this necessarily is the worst line in the movie, but I guess I could file it as like the silliest or goofiest. It made me like almost facepalm. I didn't like it. Is I think it was said by Sarge describing that their situation was like Goldilocks, how they came into the house, ate their food, slept in their beds. I thought that was
Forced her angry with
too.
us.
Yeah, I thought that was too silly.
Too silly.
No, I think that fits. He's just using a metaphor to apply to the situation. For me, that was just. For me, that
That's
was
like classic
fine.
army. Yeah, that's like classic army situation. Find a very
I was
simple.
okay with it, but I did write down to acknowledge that they would have attacked you even if you weren't at the house,
Yeah.
which would make the statement a little dumb in that regards.
I think what he was really trying to say is like, we are like trespassing on them, so they really do have more of a right to to kill and eat us than if we were just randomly outside. I guess maybe if I wanted to play it in, but yeah, I mean it is silly. I'm not gonna say it's not, but I enjoyed it.
Solidly 50-50 on the line.
Found it funny there was a
There we go.
skeleton in the closet.
I
Nice.
the whole chase sequence with Sarge and
Yeah, no,
Cooper,
no, no,
I think
I
was
don't like it.
great.
Oh,
Yeah,
opposites.
The one in the
Op-
house or the one outside? Because Sinister there are two.
in
No,
the house.
the one in the house, I don't really care for. Both of them I think are kind of flawed. I think the inside one is
They're not
more
perfect for
flawed.
sure.
Yeah.
Like Sarge in the bathroom, I think he could have gotten killed pretty easily, even with his little flamethrower device. But I like the idea of burrowing through the walls to go room to room because they have no other options. And the cabinet, interesting choice. I don't think they would have been like, let's go in this confined space where we can't see
That was
anything.
my problem.
Yeah,
But I do
the
like how they
dumb
shot
thing.
out the floor
Yeah,
to
funny.
escape.
The shooting out the floor is the only thing I hated.
Oh,
Oh, really? I thought that was
Yeah.
cool. Smart
It's
That
move.
never.
cool, but it's yeah,
It so never works in every. It's that for me is such
it so
definitely.
never works.
it was made
For
out
me,
of plywood.
For me, it was like, oh, this is obviously fantasy. You know,
This is real
uh,
fantasy. Not the werewolves coming in. That was real life, but this is fantasy.
I mean, it's a fairly grounded
No,
film outside of the
I
werewolf.
agree. Yeah.
But the shooting out the floor thing, and
Have you
honestly, I don't think
played
it's the
Siege before? Come on.
yeah. So you
Come
know what?
on, come
Siege is not
on.
realistic. So here's the thing.
It's a video game.
It definitely was
Mm.
that sort of thing was definitely a ruin for me because the MythBusters had a whole episode about shooting the floor out beneath you,
Oh yeah.
and I'll tell you what, doesn't work.
You need more bullets
So
than what they had.
you need more than 600 bullets to do
Yeah,
it, and
yeah. 'Cause
I
you'd
don't
have
think they
to
have that
hit every
ammo.
point.
No,
No,
at this
definitely
point,
not.
I think they had like 18.
Like one whole clip. Yeah, they had
Uh,
I think they had 2 clips at one point, and then they shot all of one gun. So I think they might have had
they had 48, and they split
yeah,
it between them and Spoon, who ran out in the kitchen or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
So whatever that split was, I don't know if it was 50-50. Maybe
I
they
would
had
I
assume
didn't
24.
50-50,
I didn't
but
calculate it, but it seems there's
I mean, it would
definitely
have been movie
calculate.
logic anyways.
Yeah, I definitely see calculations you could make on the ammo matching up to what they're saying of the rest of their ammunition they have, lining up the 24-hour window if that's the whole window a werewolf is present to match up.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
whenever they were referencing ammo, I wrote it down and kept track of it through that. I wasn't counting the shots because that's a lot of
Yeah.
bullets they went through. But their last count was 48, and then they split up. So I imagine they split the ammo. So they had
But I
about 24 or less bullets to shoot the floor out.
Yeah, I was gonna say I definitely like them burrowing through the wall and stuff like that. I think they just the floor on shooting the floor out underneath the cabinet. That to me was the only part of that
Yeah.
Just
chase
too
sequence
much.
that broke for me. Yeah,
I liked the concept of the chase and everything. It was way too long, and it didn't feel like it didn't feel like they would have survived that long. I guess is
I kind of like the
I
use
also
of the
didn't
him trying
know
to get
why a skeleton was in there.
yeah,
no, yeah,
People
it was
live
it's
in
a
this
ridiculous.
house.
it's a literal skeleton in the closet. Can't you tell the
People live
on the
here.
nose reference that it?
I did like the
Yeah.
use of it
It was a
showing
midnight snack.
more guerrilla warfare, of using the environment to their best of the capability that they could.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it would have been nice if they'd been doing that like the whole time, but I'm happy it was at the. I mean, they
they,
kind of
they
did.
they definitely they
They,
definitely tried
they
to, but I
yeah,
think at the end is where like they saved all of that concept for sure because I think there was
like
definitely some elements earlier, but not
yeah,
as
because they did
strong
the
as most.
boiling. They did the boiling water, which was good. I like that. That was good, and they did the boarding up, which was next to
Zombies
point.
round 5.
It worked.
Yeah,
They
which was
couldn't
next
break
to
down a
pointless,
door.
but yeah, they could break down those boards
Effectively.
pretty easily though. Technically,
But I do like that.
Effectively.
I do like
no,
that they
sorry.
board up the windows because that way they could still hear what direction they're coming from,
Yeah, I agree.
even if it's served no other purpose other than to just slow them down temporarily.
Yeah, we referenced in the beginning that my favorite scene wasn't the beginning, but it was later. It was Sarge's death for me. I think that was my favorite
That was
scene.
badass. That was
Oh
pretty
yeah,
badass.
How quick and efficient he was with like dousing the fire, cutting the gas line. It wouldn't have filled up that quickly for that explosion, but
No,
but the intent is definitely appreciated.
yes, I like how swift he was. He was very stern with Cooper. Like, this is what's happening. You have no say. Get going. I think the way he acted it was pretty well. It was all solid there.
I think Sean Pertwee is a great actor,
I agree.
Mr.
yeah.
White.
even for the small role he had in the movie The Invitation, which I've seen. Still great.
Is that the vampire movie?
Yeah,
Okay. The one that bombed. Well, I don't know if it bombed. It was not well received.
Yeah, I have a kind of related to Sarge. I really like the healing scene or when they're trying to patch Sarge up, but I like the shots around the house where they're all just sitting quietly listening to Sarge yell.
yeah, that's good.
That was a very that to me was a very powerful scene where you're looking at the expressions of all the soldiers who know like who look up to him, listen to him scream and stuff like that. It's
Um,
very powerful
Oh,
stuff.
interesting. Okay, do you think that was used more for the aspect of the film then to get the better sounds of Sarge? That's why they didn't give him something to bite down on?
well, I mean, you still would have heard it,
Well,
even if
yeah,
he
You
had
but it
still
something
would
to
have
would
write
heard
down.
it
yeah, but it would have been
even if
more
he
just
was
like
hiding down on
grunts,
something.
No,
grunts and moans
I mean,
versus actual
I mean, it
yells.
You
helps.
you absolutely could still scream around a gag. It
Yeah, yeah.
is so it's definitely more clear. It's definitely more clear
No, I'm not.
without it.
Okay, yeah, I'm not saying the difference between using it versus not using it in the way of the yell. I'm saying it in the use of what you just explained, Ryder, of the sound connected to
He's
showing the soldier's reaction to the
he's trying to
situation.
get rid of the fact that in a real actual medical situation they would have had him bite down on something, and
Oh,
maybe that
yeah,
was like a
it's definitely more
choice.
show than tell.
Yeah,
Sure, I'll
it,
agree
it
with
plays
that.
off more for the film aspect than the actual world aspect.
Yeah,
Um, I also like the scene where Megan plays piano. It's like that little calm moment before like the storm and everything.
I thought it would have been
It's
yeah.
also
funnier
a
if
good
it was
one.
Moonlight Sonata.
That would have
That
been
would have been
two on the
funnier.
nose.
Too
Two
much
on
on the
the
nose.
nose. Two on the nose. I listen. As much as I love an American Wolf in London playing a bad moon on the rise while he transforms, Moonlight Sonata would have been a little too on the nose in this movie.
Well, at least it's not. It's Morbin time or Wolfen time. All
Oh
right.
God, no.
Yeah, here's a like werewolf in time, dog soldier in time, or something. I don't know. Yeah,
Something I do appreciate, even though a lot of the soldiers, at least three of them, aren't that they're barely characters to me.
yeah.
Like
Like
Terry,
Joe
Joe,
and
and
Terry. Yeah,
first guy that
Bruce.
They're
Bruce
characterized
Jones.
enough, but
they have names. One like sports, Joe or
Football.
whatever. But that they're very
That
disposable. No
I
connections to them really.
one
But
of
I
the
do appreciate how the team reacts to their deaths. We actually they all their bodies get found.
yeah,
E-
with the exception of
Even
like yeah.
Spoon, who died on his own, they landed and found his body, and we got to see their reaction. Dang it, they got Spoon.
yeah,
So I like how he was Spoon didn't die, and that was it. He actually got an acknowledgement of his death, which I think was nice.
I
they're
will say
not
probably one.
like one of the things that kind of on top of that is that they're not disposable to the characters, which I think is the most important thing. Like they're not disposable to each other, even if they are not
To an
at the
audience,
forefront
yeah.
as main characters to the audience, but they're not disposable to the main characters who know them. I think that to me helps really elevate them, even if they are more back bystander characters.
I think speaking of like Joe and like I think the worst dialogue in the movie for me was after Joe gets eaten or whatever. Uh, Cooper asks Ryan if he likes sports or football or something. I don't remember.
Oh,
It's like, well,
connecting to
Joe
like
did.
he'll
Joe,
never watch the game.
yeah, he'll never watch. He missed a game today for this boy. And like,
He lost his
okay,
life.
yeah, it's like okay, okay. Glad that his personality trait came through in this moment, but that was always I was just like, I can't watch the footy. I can't watch. I can't. It's a big game. It's Germany versus UK or whatever. I don't
It's not
remember.
just a game.
It's not just a game.
Just like
Then
you,
I
all I want to do is get home, jump into a warm bed with a nice hot woman, and watch the footy.
watch the footy. I don't know.
Uh,
That was man.
I wouldn't
yeah,
say it's bad dialogue, but it's
Not the whole
odd.
thing. Not the
But
whole thing.
it could have been
Because
better.
it gets better and it goes places with it. There's a reason for it.
yeah.
It justifies itself. But I was just like, such a weird way to put it, and it doesn't really
Yeah,
just because he just mentions it. It doesn't have any weight to
like
it.
one character trait that we know of them, which
Yeah.
works. It kind of felt forced.
That's usually the scene where like he had a family, but his
Yeah.
is he had a game to watch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I don't like it. I'm like, it's fine if there was more to it, but it's literally just like the only personality trait we have of him that's different from somebody else,
even
I
if-
hope
and
I
it
even
just
don't
if-
doesn't
butcher
have
this,
the
but
same.
that is big juror number 6 energy.
What I just said?
No, about like he's got a game
Oh.
to watch.
Yeah. Okay. I was
He's
like,
not
all right.
supposed to
Juror
be
number
here.
That's 7,
yeah.
isn't it?
No, 6 is the right one. Juror 6 is the
Yes.
baseball
He
guy.
wants-
Yeah.
We're
Here's
supposed
the
to have a
thing.
shorthand list so we can remember because we bring it up in every podcast now, but it didn't happen.
No,
Yeah.
he was 7 because 5 was the switchblade guy and 6 was the blue collar.
Oh, you're
And
right.
then
You're right.
7
Yeah.
was
7
like-
is the baseball guy. Because
Alright,
8 is
7.
the
I
main
made a mistake.
character.
Yeah.
9 is the old man.
It's all right.
Yeah,
It's been a while since we watched it.
12
Yeah.
Finger Men. Sorry.
Yeah.
He's the
We'll
guy
watch
in the
that. We
pork
covered it.
I had or whatever.
One of the interesting things is I actually think that line of dialogue would work if they set up like for me, it would be the best way to set up something a line like that would be it would be an indirect reference. Like we know that he loves to watch the sports game with his kids.
Boy.
You
Yeah.
know, like if we knew that, it's like I want to be home because my son was so excited to see this game. You know, like this thing, and he starts
Yeah.
complaining that indirectly, like he had a game to watch today. Even if he
Yeah.
doesn't say the rest, we as an audience know why that angers him. You know.
I think the inherent
pretty good.
problem with it is that it is a selfish reason for him not wanting to be there. There's not really any, you know, nobody else is involved with it, so it does feel that's so it
Yeah,
feels
like
very like
you attach like my son is like the biggest fan of the sport. He
yeah
watch it, and I want to be there with him to watch the game. You know that to me would have strengthened that particular line a lot.
yeah I agree. I like I said, it's not the worst. It's not. I don't think it's objectively the worst thing. I just think it's like the one that stuck out to me the most because it was just very
Could have been
weird
stronger.
and kind of yeah. It could have been something more, but it just because of the nature of it, it really was just stuck and I was just like, it doesn't really seem like he had much to live for then if that was all that mattered.
Yeah. Oh, what's my least favorite line of dialogue? Um, I don't know if I have one.
Have you licked your
You
balls
like most
yet?
of it? Oh, I forgot you don't have any.
I mean, he's taunting a bad guy, so I just wrote
That's
that off as. But
that is
I
that's
mean, I
no.
wouldn't taunt a villain by saying that. But you know what? I'm not Cooper, so Cooper can
It's
say what he wants.
Ryan. He deserves
Yeah, it's
it.
fucking Ryan.
Uh,
Maybe it's Ryan. We don't know if their personalities are transferred to the wolf
Yeah,
form.
it could just be another. That would be funny if it wasn't even Ryan the whole time. It was Megan or something. Well,
Well,
maybe
the
like
sword in him kind of says who
my
it is.
yeah, no, I know.
I thought of another strong piece of dialogue or exchange of dialogue was when Ryan deflected with Cooper again in terms of dialogue. So Cooper goes through the motions, then he says, "Stop fucking changing the subject or whatever." Like that was actually really
Fair
nice.
enough.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
I quite liked that the dialogue exchange.
Uh,
I'm trying to think of a bad one. It's probably one of the throwaway lines one of the soldiers says because I'm not
I'm
big
scared
into
of
like
Spider Woman.
That
I'm
never
scared of
came into
women and
play. I
spiders.
was expecting one
Spider-Man.
of them to die from a spider bite.
Well, no, the woman thing came into play because Megan turns on him, so it kind of
it's true.
just the Spider Woman part was didn't really come into play.
Listen, he's afraid of monster girls, and he found one. That's
Yeah.
um,
So, no, I was gonna say like maybe like for the audience they don't have like the genitalia visible down there, but for them they do have genitalia visible, which would be really off putting.
What, the werewolves?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like saying like no them they're Ken dolls down there. You take their GI Joe pants off, there's nothing. They're smooth.
if I have to pick
Uh,
my least favorite
that
line,
was a
I'm actually gonna
terrible.
pick.
I hate picturing that in my mind.
If I have to pick my worst line in the film, I'd actually probably pick something in the opening scene where they're all sitting around outside, like they just got off the chopper and they're talking. I think my worst line of dialogue would probably be one of them complaining about the ball game because they don't do that they don't use that enough to kind of highlight the difference in character for them because like I said the other three kind of just become mainstay background characters and I think that's the opportunity right there they could have injected something even if it's small to give us a character trait with them to latch onto.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're all just kind of together giving Sarge some shit.
Yeah, they're all giving Sarge some shit. The only person who's doing work is Cooper because Cooper's looking at a map over there and we're learning about Sarge mostly in that scene.
I guess that
yeah.
explains why I know Cooper and can distinguish him versus Terry, Joe, Bruce, and Spoon.
I think Spoon stands out.
Spoon stands
Spoon
out
does
towards
stand
the end.
out.
Spoon stands out closer to the end, but that's because everyone else has kind of got whittled away.
Yeah.
I
With
will say at
time.
first I got Spoons and Bruce confused for each other, and then the first so I was very confused when he was like, "Wait, Spoons is still alive? He died."
Yeah.
Um, no,
And
I think like that's like they're kind of like the cannon fodder guys aren't super depth heavy, but they have depth with the other characters, so you
yeah,
you feel for them, even though
yeah,
we
their
as an
impact
audience,
is
yeah,
certainly based off the reactions of their deaths, not their
Yeah.
presence as characters.
Yeah,
Hmm.
which works at least
Yeah, it works for
partially.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's a smart scriptwriter tip, everybody.
I'll let you know
You don't
when
have to write
I
good characters, just reactions to the character.
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Just make sure your main characters react properly like they normally would, especially if they've known each other for many, many months/years. See,
was gonna say, looking at my
Like,
notes here, it looks like I only got about 2 more points to make.
I've got
You want to make them
one,
right now, back to
and it's
back?
and it's,
You
and it's
want to
half a
shotgun
joke.
those babies?
I could.
Yeah, I got one, and it's half a joke. So Springs, take it away.
Earlier on, when they're like kind of first get to Ryan in his camp, Sarge like sticks his knife in some meat and examines, and you can hear flies. There's not a single fly present, and it's just a sound effect.
How
Sure.
dare they?
Yeah.
Sure.
That's
Why'd you say sure?
I did say
Sure.
sure.
Okay.
I didn't pay
Sure.
attention
Okay.
if there were flies or not, so I'll just go with it. Sure.
It's just a background noise.
I like
And
that.
then I
Funny.
guess I'll shotgun him. The other one is the end credits. I think were cool, showing like the images of the photos taken by Megan. However, the sound effect used of the photo was corny.
Uh, yeah, I agree with that.
It's a very classic photo sound effect.
Da, 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 da. Na, 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 na.
One of my points I was going to bring up was also regarding the credits, but the last image, the newspaper, would that have made it to the news?
What was it?
I
England
feel like
5,
That
Germany
was okay.
1.
That was something I kind of
Presumably,
wanted to
you said
talk about.
they had a quote from Cooper, presumably, saying "Werewolves ate my platoon." That was like the header of his section of the paper. Uh,
presumably, it would reach the news if, because remember, he has no radio contact out there, so presumably he just hiked. They took him to the nearest police station. He complained to them, and it just leaked out from there.
That's a
Well,
good
that
would
was
he do that?
no reader.
Is
see, that
my
was my
I
thing. That was I was like, I don't think he would say anything because
he's still a
he,
soldier.
well, no, 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 no,
Well,
no.
he has no reason to keep it secret, though.
There's no
No,
reason to tell any random people in
I
the town either.
I'm fine with him. Like, I'm not like he's gonna report it because there's, I mean, a whole platoon is gone, so there's no way you can like say, oh, nothing happened or whatever.
This
But
whole platoon is gone. A whole spec ops team is gone. People regularly go missing out here.
yeah, so I don't think he would say, oh yeah, it was werewolves, because he just looks like a crazy person, and they'll be like, oh well, you did it, then you killed them. Like that's the almost obvious thing because
But
he's the only
here's
one
the
who's
thing.
left.
Here's the thing. There's a body
Yeah,
now at the base in the basement.
I guess I don't know
So
if it doesn't disappear when they die. Like, it seems.
to be fair, we don't really see it disappear.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
presumably there is a corpse down there.
But the building still has fire, so it could go
who
down
knows?
there and catch on fire.
Who knows?
Uh,
Yeah, I don't know. That was my problem. I was like, I don't think he would. I don't think he would tell the truth because it would, like, yeah, it would be like a National Enquirer thing or something, like, aliens abducted me and impregnated me with 15 babies or whatever. Like, okay, you're fucking crazy.
Okay, we do get a lot of UFO newspaper though. We can't
I
really.
I I am not. Like, that's my that's the shit, right? That's, I'm saying that's like the bare minimum of what shit would be, right? So I don't know, like,
media
I don't,
coverage
like I
is
well,
said,
different from US to UK.
Yeah.
yeah, but
I just don't know how it would get in the papers. He'd get to a town or somewhere where he can communicate with somebody, and that would be it. He wouldn't be talking to people at the grocery store. Hey, my platoon died back there. I'm just waiting for pickup.
I
I
mean,
don't know how word would have spread outside of anyone he'd be telling for pickup, unless there was a rat or something, a leaker, a
word
whistleblower.
travels
That's it, not
fast,
a rat,
and
a whistleblower.
he could have just like I said he could have just talked to several people like I need to get out here, and then he just reported it to the police that this thing sent people out there. They found the body and other things out there.
I don't know why he would do local law enforcement.
Why wouldn't he? He has no way to contact anybody. He's stuck out there. That's the
He's
whole
got to have
point. He has
some
to
way
walk to the
once he
nearest
gets
town.
to civilization to communicate to somebody he
Yeah,
knows.
eventually, yes. So he has to work his way to that. So he would still talk to the police first, and you'd work with local law enforcement to get you back to where you need to go. That's
Yeah,
base thing. At worst, at the most bare minimum thing is he finds a payphone and just calls a number he knows. He could do that.
that's kind of how I envision it. Because if he went to the police station, he's like, all my men died back there, even if werewolf or not werewolf. He's then sending people over there to potentially die because he doesn't know
Well,
for sure werewolves don't prowl during the day. He doesn't know that for sure. Uh, the flare happened in the morning with Ryan, so the fight could have happened in the morning and not at night. So he could be sending strangers to their deaths. It doesn't seem like he would need civilian assets when he could just call for army assets and wait it out. And it seems unnecessary.
Like I said, I'm fine with him contacting like authorities or whatever. I don't think he would. I just don't think he would tell the truth because the truth is very very out there.
I mean, my idea, the concept is pretty much they found out that werewolves are a thing, and that's why, or that was the headline, werewolves ate my platoon. He wouldn't be truthful. I don't think he would be obtuse about it, other than they found the werewolf corpse and started asking more questions.
Yeah, no. I think it's just like it. I don't know. One like okay, you can have like a real alien experience, right? You can have a real alien experience. I'm using this as a
Sure,
baseline.
we'll go with that. You can do that.
You can have a real alien experience, get abducted, whole shebang. You can go to the most prestigious institute in America to tell your story. They don't have your experience, and as far as they know, their experiences with it are TV, movies, or whatever, and then you know eh, sensationalist rags or whatever that go on, and so they're not going to believe you, and if anything, they're probably going to think you're crazy or you have something wrong with you, or you had some other experience that you're misconstruing as that, or what. There's all this other stuff. So I feel like as a soldier, he would kind of have a distinct. I was like, okay, combat, weariness and all that stuff. PTSD has very, if I tell them what actually happened, there's going to be all kinds of cover ups and things and ways to, change my story or make me out that I don't know what I'm talking about. So, and like he doesn't have to talk about the secret, ops, special ops thing or whatever, because that he could technically get away with that because they're not gonna put that out that like, oh yeah, the special ops team got assassinated or whatever out in the boonies. But like, I don't think he would. There would be some story of like, oh yeah, we were attacked. He could say something that sounded similar, like we were attacked by a bunch of a pack of wild wolves or whatever, all that stuff, and just make it sound believable. But I don't know if he would be like, yeah, werewolves, ate my platoon, and that's the be like, okay, well you're fucking nuts, and you probably killed them, so we're gonna fucking arrest you.
Yeah, they probably did until they found the werewolf corpse.
But yeah, that's a big leap because we don't know any of that.
Yeah, well, it's a big leap to assume that he wouldn't
It's
do
that's
all that.
that is a very logical.
That's a very okay. Let me
Yeah,
rephrase.
yeah, that's a
Let me
very
rephrase.
logical. Like that I listen. I would love that
Okay, no,
werewolves are
no. Let,
real.
let me rephrase. Let
Yeah,
me rephrase.
yeah,
So you're right in that it's logical, but we're also talking about Cooper here, who is very honorable to a fault. That's part of
yeah.
his character.
I don't know. I think like the best way to get like the redemption for his men or whatever to get out the truth without having to or get in trouble or whatever is to like
I mean, to be
tell
fair,
a half truth.
the photo does make him look crazy. So maybe that is what happened. He was straight up honest
Yeah,
about the
maybe
whole thing.
that's probably,
I
but
mean, he's
I just
bleeding from the forehead in the photo. So
I'm just thinking he'd be a little bit smarter in like the okay, for like I guess another example, Crimson and I watch X-Files. And there's a lot of situations with Mulder where he'll just say the crazy shit of I think it was aliens or whatever to some local sheriff and he looks insane, and they treat him as such. And it's an FBI guy, a very high level government official. So the same thing, for like he could be a soldier, he could be a very honorable soldier and everything, well decorated and everything. But as soon as he says something that is outside of the experience or the worldview of whoever, all of that goes away and just becomes like the ramblings of a madman.
Yeah, but then it comes down to, is it within Cooper's character to lie?
Like I said, I don't. He might not tell a full lie, but he would tell like a half truth of like he could say there was a wolf attack or something,
A lot of it
because
is we
he
just
had.
don't know the fallout of it. We don't know if he sent people there. We don't know if he just went straight to the military and
Like I said,
some
we don't know.
leaker got a hold of it.
It just seems to me like with what we have, which is just like there's a newspaper thing dated a few days after or whatever that talks about the football game, so that happened that day. It it would seem that it was very close together. So there's some talking to reporters or whatever. That's all I'm saying, and I think that's a little bit out of the character that I think he would have of like instantly just being like, oh yeah, no, I fought werewolves and they killed most of my men or whatever. So that I don't have much evidence, and but
To be
and the
fair,
same
neither
thing
do
on yours.
I.
Yeah,
So
no, neither of us have a lot of evidence. We're just going off of what we think of the character, and I'm fine to be on opposite ends of the. It's a. I think you have a fair point, and I think my point is fair as well. But you know,
Franks, what do you think about the newspaper?
I don't see any reason why Cooper would lie.
all right.
He
well,
doesn't have a
okay,
higher up to worry about. Like,
yeah, but I
Well, he does. He's just a soldier. There are other people
I think
above
with
him.
his experience, no, I don't see him lying. He sticks to his
but
guns of his character, which was in the first scene with Ryan.
just like it
It's also
seems like
not
so.
lying. You just don't have to say anything.
Yeah, but my point is, it's not within Cooper's character to avoid saying it. Is my point. We can argue about how the leak got out. That would be like, even if he was honest and wrote a report about it to his superior, he would still be honest in that report. The issue that I suppose I would take with it is just how quickly the word got out. Because if it's the same day as that football game or whatever, I take more issue with that then.
Well,
Well,
another
yeah, I
thing
don't
Because
is,
he's
know.
supposed to be in the middle of nowhere with no way to contact anybody because all the radios are broken. And
yeah, Ryder, with
now,
what you touched on earlier, and I'll say apologies now because I called you reader by mistake. With the news traveling of word, when it showed what was it, the campsite of the two people who died, and then it was 2 weeks later of Cooper and Ryan, and then 4 months after that is when this takes place. I
um,
think that was the timeline.
we are okay. No. It was so we had the couple that got killed. We actually jumped a week before
Okay, week
with
before.
Ryan, and then we jumped 4 weeks ahead from that.
4 weeks ahead, so it's been a
So
month. Okay, so the
it's been
time.
at least 3 weeks to a month since the couple was killed
Okay,
at the time they landed out of the helicopter.
and that news has traveled to word of this squad because they mention it.
Yes, they are aware of that incident.
Okay, so I think news travel of time period could help here with what we're explaining about the paper.
I mean, the public is aware that this area is notorious for people vanishing. That is common knowledge. Dozens of people vanish here. At least, if we believe Megan, that's what she claims, and that's what tipped her off to come here as a zoologist to study the rumors of werewolves, was the vast disappearances. So I believe her statement that there's
Okay,
dozens of
I was
disappearances
about to
here.
ask if we believe that to be true.
Yeah, because
I don't think we
I
have any
mean,
reason to
unless you don't
disbelieve
believe
Megan
she's a
at that point.
zoologist, but I don't
Yeah.
know why she'd lie about that part.
It could have been her
It's a
origin story as to why she ended up there in the first
Okay,
place.
I thought a zoologist might be a good, just easy cover up to explanations in case she slips up saying something towards lycanthropes, or whatever.
Lycanthropes.
Lycanthropy.
One word to say.
It is. That it is. That it is. I don't think
I think
have
this is the most we've
anything
ever talked
else.
about credits of a movie.
I
There's
mean,
Maybe.
usually not much at the end of them.
I like the idea of the
Chip and
whole.
Dale we did for a bit because they actually showed
Yeah,
story in the credits.
yeah. I like the idea of like the Polaroids and everything, but I actually wonder if that was actually. No, those are definitely planned out. They weren't like from the actual shots. That would be impossible.
The actual
My
shots,
last
no, they'd be a blurry mess.
yeah, my last point is half a joke, but also half a point. I actually really like the overland hiking shots because it really grounds you, and like it makes you feel like they're on location, and it makes it feel like they're on an actual exercise.
Ryder, I
Being
think you and
out.
I can both agree of the understanding to those establishing shots.
Yeah, like I said, we're in the middle of the Lord of the Rings high and Crimson's nap time, and I really, yeah, it was just good establishing shots.
I would also like to point out that that is a very good writer made a very good summation of our podcast. It's half a joke and half a point.
Yeah. All right.
Half
Well,
serious, half joke.
yeah.
It's a tickle.
I guess. Does anyone have any final points? Otherwise, we can move to ratings.
I think I had one while we were talking about the whole credits thing, but I lost it, so it must not have been that important.
I
And
have
if I
one.
remember it, I can bring it up on the recap.
You have none. You said.
I have one, and it's a baby point because I didn't really understand the purpose of it.
Okay.
Maybe I missed something.
Lay it on, baby.
When Megan cut her hand on the glass in the window, they focused heavily on that, and I didn't really know what that meant.
I think they would have
I didn't
done
know
the
what that
wound
meant either.
reveal later on, but
They
maybe
forgot.
originally that's what it was supposed to be. But
Oh yeah, it was a breadcrumb that they kind of lost in the
in
editing
the
bay or
edit,
something.
Like they never showed her hand heal.
That'd
Maybe.
be
Yeah.
it would be a
I think
real. I don't believe it to be, but it could be crazy if that's like she was never a werewolf to begin with. She's part of the family, but not a werewolf, and that's what changed her.
That crossed
That
my
would
mind
be
originally, but that would help with her timeline. But her timeline would have been shortened.
It explains why
Dramatically.
she's the one member of the family not changed.
that would be one thing. I don't know if I think that would break it more than I would like.
yeah,
More than I would like
I
it,
think
yeah.
originally that's supposed to be a breadcrumb that got lost in the editing bay.
Yeah.
To show her getting hurt, and then they probably had a shot of her hand healed or something, but
Yeah.
that didn't make it into the movie. Maybe.
All right. I guess with that we can move to ratings.
Alrighty.
Sinister, why don't you start us off?
Oh boy, I think this is gonna. I'm probably gonna get skewered on the recap already. I know it. Give me a hot seat. I think I know why you picked this. Well, another reason why you might have picked this.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I will say this was a fun movie for me. When so I watched it on Hulu because it's streaming on Hulu. So check it out, everybody. Uh, well, who knows? By the time you watch this,
As of
it's still
release.
on there.
As
As of this is
filming.
coming out, it's still on
As of-
Hulu. So sorry in the future if it's not, but whatever. I'm not a mind reader or a fortune teller. So and I love that it had a one sentence description, which either means it's going to be like fun bad or bad or fun, any kind of combination of the two. And more than happy that it was fun.
One of them.
Fun. No, it wasn't fun bad. I don't think never got bad for me. Yeah, so I liked it. I definitely aired some of my grievances. I think and everybody else did. It's not a perfect movie by any stretch, but I think it's a very strong first outing for a lot of people. I'm trying to think. Yeah, some of the camera work is a little bit subpar. I think there's a lot of strong stuff, but then there's at least probably 25, maybe 15% at least of kind of weaker amateurish kind of stuff, and some of it might just be the equipment wasn't up to snuff, or just the shooting on. I'm assuming it's probably like some of the shots are like 16 millimeter, and some of them look like actual 35. So who knows, but it might just be all 16. I do enjoy that aesthetic for it. I think it really drives home. It's like some sort of lost, 80s, 70s horror film or something, which is it's kind of cool. But it definitely, like I said, has technical issues with it, but aesthetically, I think it really helps it a lot. All the acting is pretty good. I don't really know of really any bad moments other than a few. It was touched on by Crimson early on. The woman being pulled out of the tent didn't really react quite aggressively enough against it, and I could maybe see that. But I think pretty much everywhere else, there's not really a bad performance. There's maybe some bad character writing, but nothing really of a bad performance. Uh, Overall, it's pretty. I mean, it's just a classic, cabin in the woods, bottle, bottle kind of thing. It's all one location pretty much for the whole movie, with the exception of a flashback.
Mhm.
Trying to see if there's anything else that I really didn't like or problems with. We did bring up that some of like the house, once they got to the house, the military background skill set seems to sort of deteriorate pretty quickly, which is kind of unfortunate because I think for the first half, it's actually better than a lot of films that I've seen of being kind of realistic of a training scenario and a tactical training scenario with that. So it does suck that kind of the high intensity moments of the house kind of, those fall by the wayside to make it room for it. So, um, could touch on other stuff, but keep this pretty concise. I think this is a decent 7. I don't. Most of my problems with it weren't egregious enough to really ruin my enjoyment of this too much. And I think it is just. I mean, it's mostly just a fun movie. It's not perfect. It's not a masterpiece, but it's it excels at what it does, and it is pretty fun little horror movie about soldiers fighting werewolves. Which, hey, that's a concept I've never seen before, and it's weird it took so long to get there. I feel like that would have been like 1985. Arnold Schwarzenegger fights werewolves in or
Fighting the
something. That
Predator. They
seems
couldn't
like
have.
a yeah. They couldn't. Yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger was like, "Oh, I have to fight the predator." That was terrible, but yeah. So, you know, it seems like a very, very obvious concept, and one that could be very easily just a schlocky B movie. And I'm glad that this is mostly uh, well done for the limited concept that it is. So, I think a 7 is fair.
All right. Crimson, why don't you go?
Okie dokie. I'll start with my subjective. The first half, maybe 2/3, somewhere around there. I was hovering around a 5. It was okay. I could watch it with a family member. But I really did enjoy the whole final siege and like the second to last one, I guess, parts of it. And just with the sergeant and his relationship with Cooper, I really enjoyed it. I think it all came together because they were building up their relationship throughout the whole movie. I think they pulled it together really well with the trapdoor part and the self-sacrifice. Uh, so that really boosted it up. I'm giving it a subjective 6. I enjoyed it. Probably will watch it at least one more time in my life. Objectively, we talked quite a bit on the camera work in the beginning of this pod, and I think it stands true still. The camera work was pretty dodgy, had some moments. Uh, no camera work that really stood out as being good. It was either satisfactory, average, run of the mill camera work, or bad ones that we pointed out. I think the actors all did their parts. Yeah, I agreed. I don't think any of them were bad actors. Megan, I think she's a mess. Uh, her motivations, just we talked a while about
That's
her and we couldn't pin down on anything. And the
that's what
fact
I
that she
missed on my
was,
thing.
yeah, Acknowledged. Boop. Part of
Thank
your
you.
rating. Uh, yeah, and the fact that she's both jumping on both sides. Usually, when there's a character that does that, it's very well defined what they want. Usually, it's a greedy angle, but sometimes it's some other ulterior motive. In this, if she wanted to leave, she could have and not help the soldiers. Uh, if she wanted her family dead, she could have actually done that in the shed or barn, but she helped them out. If she just wanted to kill the soldiers, she could have done it earlier. Any angle you approach on what her goals are, there's just something that counters it. So it doesn't make any sense. Sam the dog is fine being in there, but I think should have had more to do or have more of a presence, other than just the comparison of the Ryan killing a dog in the beginning and then the dog getting revenge on Ryan at the end. The letter opener is kind of just thrown in there at the end. No real build up other than it was established to exist in the beginning. I don't know how they would have introduced it throughout, because it would have been like if they introduced it in the middle somehow. As an audience, you'd be like, okay, so that's going to kill the werewolves. I totally forgot about it being silver in the beginning, because right at the beginning, it was the first minute of the movie. So I totally forgot about it. I don't know. Did you guys forget about it by the end before it was reintroduced?
No.
No. I knew it was gonna come back. I just didn't know when, or I didn't know how much of a Deus Ex Machina it was going to be, but I suspected it would come back.
This was just me. I forgot about it. So it's kind of annoying that it just came in at the end to save the day. It is what it is. Something we didn't touch on, which I forgot, was the sword in the mouth going through the teeth with the nails in the chalkboard.
Ooh.
I like the concept. It seemed a bit cheesy how it was portrayed, but I like the attempt nonetheless. Ryan, I wish was a bit more layered. He was very one dimensional. I'm gonna kill the dog. I'm just a jerk the whole time. Uh, Bad guy. That's all he is. What else was there? I mean, I'm sure there's other stuff, but overall, I was going in with an objective 7.5. That is, I think it's the largest difference post pod. uh, I'm ending with a 6.5. Whole point. Boom. It's usually only 1 point for me, or half point.
Fair enough. Springs, why don't you go?
Okay, save yourself for last.
Okay, fine. I'll go first.
No, I didn't.
All right, so I'll do my subjective first then. I will do yeah, my subjective. I was pleasantly surprised. I don't really go in for these kinds of films very often, but it was recommended to me because I'm into I like military tactics and stuff like that. So it's kind of recommended to me, and I can definitely see why. I absolutely loved the first half of the film, which is when they're all outside and being a band of brothers, as I say, talking over campfires and getting to know them. Um, so and then obviously the horror aspect. It didn't really, um, it didn't really disappoint me. I guess on the horror aspect, I thought it was serviceable most of the way through. Um, and yeah, I quite enjoyed it. Subjective 7 for me. I would watch it again. I'm probably going to watch it again, and I'll probably show a few select friends and family members. Which sorry guys that I showed you this, but I'm gonna show a few other family members and probably this film at some point. Um, Objectively, it things that I knew going in. I had been sitting around 8. There were things that I knew going into the podcast that were problems. The werewolf consistency I knew going in was a bit of a problem. I knew. Uh, I thought the other soldiers, the characters blending together. Uh, we have pretty much Cooper and Ryan, and then later Spoon just by elimination, process of elimination. The rest kind of fell in the background for me. They all kind of blend together, which can work, and I think it's serviceable enough to the plot as they're not major characters. They all kind of blend together into one character, I suppose, is what I would label it under if for my scale. Um, I think the soldiers are all pretty decent. At least while they're outside the barn. At least while they're all outside the house. I think they do everything within character. They make intelligent choices. They at least play the part of being a military unit. Um, I think of the squad, obviously, I think the two biggest characters is Cooper and Sarge. Sarge being a sort of other mentor to Cooper in kind of the complete opposite in contrast to what Ryan was as a mentor. Um, and I'll use that as I guess as a gateway to talk a bit about Ryan. I think Ryan is also he's one dimensional, but I don't really think there's anything wrong with his character. I think the character that I suspected going into the podcast that was damaged was Megan. But over the course of the podcast, I realized that how broken Megan is in terms of motivation and pretty much virtually anything else in her place in the plot as to why she's there. Because it all kind of muddles together in a confusing way. We don't know if she loves the werewolf family she's a part of, even if it's spitefully, like it's a Stockholm syndrome sort of thing. So she wants to get away, but she still doesn't want to hurt them. Ultimately, doesn't want them to die. Um, we don't know if she was planning to get away. We don't know if it's a whole trap on her part. We don't really know her motivations. And I knew she was at least a damaged character. I didn't think she was as broken going into the podcast, so that did lower my original score. Um, I think for the most part, there's a few conveniences here and there. Gun jamming, um, being an obvious one. The werewolves being really fast out in the open and slowing down to allow Spoon to get away is also a minor problem. So there are a few conveniences here and there. The biggest one, obviously, is that the werewolves have the silver thing at the end. They keep trophies apparently from people they hunt, or in their gear, which I guess I don't really know why they would do that. It would just kind of it worked unfortunately to their detriment when they brought silver in. So it was a little bit of a Deus Ex Machina with that. But I am happy they at least set it up at the beginning. Um, I'm at an objective 7.5. I think is where I'm at. I think the characters carry the film. I think the world building is mostly consistent outside of the bullets, werewolves, and uh, possibly time, but that's something to keep track of on the rewatch. Um, and the plot's pretty simple: just don't die, and it works. Because it's a horror film, so that's usually a good major plot point for those. So, yeah.
One thing I forgot to also mention, my like sister forgot something. I thought the costumes and practical effects were good, which I touched on earlier.
I also agree with him on that.
Yeah, that's fair. I think they use their budget fairly well on all of that. So, yeah, I guess to end us off, Springs, how did you go?
Okay. I'm actually going to start with subjective. This was a fun movie. I'll say that. This was definitely enjoyable and fun. We've gone through the experience of watching being trapped in a house with demons. We've seen being trapped in a house with zombies, and now to add to our roster, trapped in a house with werewolves. It's it's overall fun. I think unfortunately the quality of it docks my subjective a little because it feels rushed and I don't think it should be, and it feels like it could it's really tight. I'm very 50-50 on this. It feels like it could be done as like a student or college film. However, the budget's really high, and that of course goes to all the aspects of everything where it is for the film, especially like the costuming of the werewolves. I don't think can be done with college students situation, but I think the quality of the camera work they have and how they go about it could be done or replicated at that level. but overall, it's a fun, enjoyable movie. I don't know if I'd go out of my way really to like put it on, but I don't hate it. So I give it a 6.5. There could have been things that I could have disliked more about it or liked more for it if it was. Now, objectively, something I like to point out first, kind of with my example there of the college thing, I think if it wasn't for the R rating and the excessive profanity, this would be a great movie for like for a film class lesson to be like learning like different uses of shots, different ways of a script to go, how you can make a whole film with only one location, like all those aspects that could be taught and then replicated by a class. I think this is a great example for. I think the outfits, I mean, they're just military fatigues, and that works fine for all the characters pretty much. The let's see, uh the lighting's all fine. I like the use of the night vision from real green, of night vision. Again, I know it's been touched on multiple times. Crimson likes to poke and prod me over this, but like a one-time use is a bad thing if it's only one-time use. I think it would have been a little cooler if they used the night vision again, like if the power went out or there's no light or the moon went behind clouds and it's like pitch black, so they have to use night vision to see. I think it would be cool if it was a second time. I think if they did more, it would have been overused and too much just green. Um, I like the black and white of the werewolf perspective of seeing them just kind of like playing with their food or toying or praying, but they're more intelligent than that. They're not just, animals going at it. So they're very, I wouldn't say the werewolves are strategic, but they're very packed. They're very a group working setting as a pack. So I like that. I think I will say my objective did go down 1 point from today talking about it. Megan's character dropped it because she has so much confusion on what her purpose is or her goal or when she changes or if she did change or if what she's saying true or not true, how much of it is true what she's saying, how much of it is to throw people off, is she really with this family, is she going against a lot of variables, and as Crimson pointed out, things that can counter the thought of another counter of her character. So I think all of that on one character who's pretty important in the film of what she does is an issue. So she did drop it. The acting I think is great. Everyone does a good acting portrayal. All the soldiers, even pointing out Sam the dog, did fine. Uh, Slight confusion on whether or not how much is a comedy. We touch on dark comedy, and there's aspects of it that are funny, but I don't know if they're necessarily supposed to be funny and aimed that way because they were written or filmed that way versus not. Um, what else? Writing overall, I think was fine. I am in agreement with what Ryder said. I think Sarge is my favorite character in this film. Might have a little bias to that, but I think the way he handles his group and then sees his situation to then pass it on to Cooper, but then still being there for Cooper as much as he can, or I guess his whole platoon at that point, is just very strong leadership for Sarge and his whole character, and I really like that. Um, there's a lot of touches that are not great. I mean, I do like that pan around shot, but again, camera quality of the time didn't hold that since back and forth. We all talked about that. There's some good, really lined up shots. There are some shots that are just kind of weird. I mean, like the cameraman falling in the pothole was discussed. There's some camera shots during like the interrogation with Ryan that are kind of, I don't know. They're like, I didn't really touch on, but they're like angled where Ryan's not fully in, but he's not fully out of the frame. It's like cut him into half. It's more focused on Cooper, but they didn't do it where they're both in frame or something. It was a little weird to me, but Ryan's still present. Um, there's some shots that are just a little off. I think the sound design is middle of the road. I mean, it works. Like the flies is a sound effect to add to like rotting meat, but there are no flies present, and like them going to check on the Jeep and there's no sound of the Jeep being destroyed, and that doesn't play until like the werewolves are fast, like they hear a commotion trying to unlock the door, and then they have like a discussion of like, no, we shouldn't go out there, blah blah blah, to give the werewolves time to destroy the Jeep. That never happens. It's just silent, and then they check. Um, so the noise is a little off. The and I guess the corniness of the camera in the credits, but I can't account that towards the film really. That's credits. It doesn't have a big aspect or effect, but I still think it's corny. Um, and then the flare with the lighting, I think it's also on the equipment, like Sinister pointed out, of what they had. So maybe they didn't notice that until they got to the cutting room floor of the editing to realize they had enough exposure already in that shot that they didn't need the flare, or they should have lowered it to make the flare more useful in that. Um, so overall, I'm giving it also a 6.5. And again, there's probably something I missed.
All right. If that is all, gentlemen, shall I read us out?
Yes,
Yep.
indeedy.
Sure.
All right, audience. Thank you for listening, whether it be Spotify, Anchor, Amazon, Castbox, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, and Samsung. And if you're on the visual side of things, be it YouTube or Rumble, thank you for watching. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe everywhere. And tell us how much you hate our opinions or how much you love them. As always, I have been a geeky writer.
I'm Crimson Maroon.
I'm a character called Sinister Boy.
And I'm Springs.
And we will catch you next time. Later, everybody.
Bye.
Toodaloo.
Goodbye.